Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the San Carlos City Council, successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. I just want to let you know you may notice that things are a little bit different tonight. We are without a council member, Mark Olbert, who had to be out of town to attend some personal family matters. And our city manager, Jeff Malpe, is home with walking pneumonia and a high fever. So our assistant city manager, Tara Peterson, is here, and she's going to be sitting in for Jeff. And also, I want to ask if there's any changes to the order of the agenda other than what I'm going to mention?
None this evening.
All right, thank you. Also, item 8, which is a public hearing, is going to be continued to November 23rd. The applicant requested that it be continued, but since it is a public hearing, if there is anybody who would like to speak, we will open it, and anybody who wants to say anything about that item, this is a consideration of adopting a resolution amending the general plan. For a property on Lemoore Drive, you will be permitted to speak on that item. Okay, let's move along to talk about council communications and announcements. These are announcements and brief items by members of the council regarding upcoming events in the community and correspondence that they have received. They are informal in nature and informational in nature, and no action will be taken on these items at this meeting. So why don't we start with Mr. Griselli?
Mr. Mayor, I have nothing tonight.
Okay. Matt?
I've got 3 items. The first is correspondence that I received. I don't know if the other council members received this or not, but I did get a letter from one of our seniors in town talking about the struggle that they're having with the sewer fees because given where their property tax is, the sewer fees pretty much doubled their tax bill, and they were writing to us to find out if there might be a way we could restructure the fees, look at something other than what is essentially a flat fee per residence, to have some other kind of structure. Unfortunately, I didn't bring the letter with me. And again, I don't know if everybody got that or if I just got it. So if not everybody got it, what I'll do is bring it in, give it to the city clerk so that everybody gets a copy, and then bring it up again for discussion to see if we want to look at that as an agenda item or not. So I'll leave that as an open item on my list here. The second item is just sort of a courtesy announcement to folks. If you may have noticed, things are closing on San Carlos Avenue. They have been for a number of years for preparation of Wheeler Plaza getting constructed, and the last businesses to go there are the locksmith and the cleaners. And particularly, I wanted to let people know with the cleaners, not just people that are here in the audience, but people at home and so forth, if you happen to use them as your cleaners, like I do, get your clothes out of there before this Saturday because they're closing for good this Saturday. So very good business run by the Bucks for many, many years, and I just want to also give my appreciation to them for being such a good family-run business in our community for as many years as they've been here. And then the last item is, I'm sure Bob got his as well. We received from the Belmont San Carlos Fire Department the annual audit for that organization, which is now sort of a ghost organization, if you will. But we received the audit, and it's, it's clear. There's, everything's looking good and so forth. So, but also note that to people, if you're interested, you can get a copy, I believe, at the library. They always put one of those in the library. So if you're interested in seeing what that looks like, it would be there in the reference section of the library.
All right, thanks. Cameron?
Thank you, Ron. So first I'll say apologize for missing the last council meeting. I was out of town for work. So I have a number of things to report over the past month. I serve as the South County representative to the San Mateo County Transportation Authority, which is one of the main sources of transportation infrastructure funding in the county. I'm really happy to report that at the September meeting of the Transportation Authority, we voted to fund the Holly Strait Interchange Project and to provide $10.7 million to the city of San Carlos, which is going to fund the bulk of the construction of that project. So that's really exciting. Jay, who put in the application, and the entire Public Works staff should be commended. There was a lot of discussion at the TA at that meeting and at the subsequent meeting, which was in October, about the plans to add a separate structure for a bike and pedestrian bridge and whether or not that was eligible for funding under the highway program. I raised a lot of questions about that and really tried to push on the staff. Unfortunately, I was pretty well convinced by the staff that the funding structure doesn't allow for that structure to be funded under the highway program. The good news is that there's a call for projects for bike and pedestrian projects that's going to go starting in December. And so I feel like we're in a good position to receive some additional funding to build a separate structure. This is so that bicyclists and pedestrians don't have to go over the Holly Street interchange, which today they're in the flow of traffic, and it will get them outside, which I think everyone agrees would be a much safer way of crossing the freeway. I also serve as one of the board of directors for the San Mateo County Library System. We had a board meeting this morning. There's always good news to report about the library. The library is in excellent financial shape. The annual rankings for the library systems came out. The San Mateo County Library System, of which San Carlos Library is one of 12 libraries, was ranked as second in California in its class and 18th in the nation, which is great. We are looking at rebranding the library. We got to look at some really beautiful brands this morning, and I think they're off to a great start. One of the suggestions for the tagline was "Open for Exploration," which I thought was really nice. I also had a chance to meet, not today, but previously, with the new head of the Friends of the Library, Lori Seidler, and she had a lot of great ideas, bringing a lot of energy to the Friends of the Library, and so I think she's going to do a great job. And one last library note, which is I took my daughter for the first time to the library book sale. We walked away with a ton of great new kids' books for a very, very cheap price. I encourage everyone to go. The Friends of the Library has a book sale the first Saturday of the month. It's upstairs at the library, and you can find great deals on lots of books, and all that money goes to benefit our library here in San Carlos. I was a panelist last week at an event organized by Assemblyman Kevin Mullen and Supervisor Warren Slocum that was attended by a number of members of staff. And the topic, they've held this annual conference. It's about government and technology and the intersection of the two. And I got to moderate a panel about the use of data in government. And we talked a lot about both the positive things that government can do with data to make life better and some of the potential privacy implications. And it was a really good dialogue, and I was really honored to be part of that. I attended with Councilmember Grisilli an event for the Sheriff's Activities League on behalf of the city to support and raise money for the Sheriff Activities League's youth gang prevention program a couple weeks back, and I was happy to do that. And then I'm the city's representative to the Peninsula Clean Energy Steering Committee, and we have monthly meetings. We're going to get a whole presentation on that tonight, so I won't go into all the details. Lastly, I attended on behalf of the mayor of the Grand Boulevard Initiative a few weeks back, which is an effort to really try and beautify and develop El Camino Real all the way from the San Jose border all the way up to San Francisco. We had a very interesting presentation about the pros and cons of potentially reclaiming parts of El Camino from the state. So as many people don't know, the El Camino is actually Highway 82, and it's owned by the state of California, which limits the ability of cities to do certain things, change the look and feel, reconfigure the street. Palo Alto is in the process of trying to take over Highway 82 and make it into a city street, and we talked about what some of the implications are. So that's my report for tonight. Thank you.
You weren't very busy, were you? All right. Thanks, Cameron. I didn't think I did anything in the last month, but it turns out I did. I had the opportunity to attend the silver celebration of the San Carlos Children's Theater, which was held at Devil's Canyon, and I try not to miss any event at Devil's Canyon. But my wife and I went because, well, first of all, we were presenting them with a proclamation, but second of all, my wife was a member of the original board of directors when our daughter was very young, and it was nice to reconnect with a lot of people. I also went to a East Side candidate forum night. Councilmember Olbert and myself attended that and met with the residents, heard a lot of their concerns. I'm also a member of the, this is a council-appointed position, much like you've heard Cameron talk about and the other council members. I'm a member of the San Mateo County Affordable Housing Task Force, which was just recently formed by Supervisors Horsley and Slocum. And we've had a couple of meetings, and because of the demise of RDA and the change in federal support for housing, it's really now becoming a regional problem and a regional issue that we need to deal with. As many of you probably know, we have a critical housing shortage in this county, and we're trying to attack it from the standpoint of having all the 20 cities in the counties work toward that end. So we're really working on some county and regional solutions for that. And along those lines, I would like to ask, I just want to interrupt this for a second. I would like to ask that we actually form a council subcommittee on housing, and I'd like to agendize that for the next meeting, and I'd like to know if there's some support among my fellow council members.
Yeah, I'd be happy to support that.
Great. So maybe we could put that on the next agenda. We have a housing authority in San Carlos, but there's no council members on any subcommittee, and I thought if we're going to have a housing authority, maybe we ought to have some council members on the subcommittee, and we should have at least a subcommittee. Also did my monthly Elms visit, which I'm going to miss. Cameron's promised to take over. Councilmember Olbert started this about a year ago, or probably more than a year ago, and I go to the Elms once a month, usually on a Friday, and talk to them about what's going on in town and tell them what went on at council meetings. They love to hear it. So it's really an enjoyable time, usually about 20 or 30 people that show up. And it's actually more entertaining for me than it is for them. I just like talking to them and with them and listening to them. I also, this is not really a council-related activity, but there's a little bit of it. We're going to give out a proclamation tonight, and one of the prerogatives of just about any council member, particularly the mayor, is that if we decide we want to give a proclamation to somebody, we give them. And so I wanted to give a proclamation to my mother-in-law because she turned 95. And so I did. And at dinner, one of the family was there, and they said, what's the worst part of being mayor? And I said, long meetings. And they said, what's the best part? And I said, giving proclamations to my 95-year-old mother-in-law. So that was a lot of fun. Also had the opportunity to actually serve dinner as just a bit of thanks and appreciation to the Sheriff's Department deputies that serve our town. And Jeff Maltby and I went downstairs, which is where the Sheriff's Bureau or Police Bureau is, and had a nice visit with them. It always helps to know who the officers are around town and have them know my face. I'm also on the HEART board. HEART stands for Housing, Equity, and Regional Trust. It is or Real Estate Trust, excuse me. It is another countywide organization that tries to present or tries to give loans to first-time home buyers. And it has also been working very hard in the demise of the RDA to continue to find ways to create more affordable housing. So there is some crossover between HEART and the San Mateo County Affordable Housing Task Force. And then finally, last week I attended a Four Corners Working Group meeting. Bob Gracilli and I have been members of this now for about 3 years, I think. The Four Corners Working Group is a group of representatives from the Belmont City Council, San Carlos City Council, San Carlos School Board, and Sequoia High School District Board, and we've been working on solutions to the traffic issues surrounding Carmel High School and Tierra Linda. That corridor in there is a nightmare. I'm sure any of you who have ever driven it in the mornings, in a school morning, know what that's all about. So we've had a traffic consultant working on it for well over 18 months, maybe, and we are finally getting down to some solutions. We're looking for some funding. The good news is it may not be as expensive as we thought. We're going to be applying for some grant funding, but hopefully in a couple of years, look for some traffic solutions which will involve some roundabouts and changing of the roadway, which should make traffic flow a lot more smoothly. And that's my report. So sorry to be so long-winded. All right, where are we? And any comments, staff comments on city administrative business?
No comments this evening.
All right, thank you. Normally this is the time where we present proclamations, and we've got several to give out tonight, and they're all for the same thing, and I'm going to read you that in a second. We have, I think, one of our recipients is here to receive the award, so I'm going to present that momentarily. But what we're going to do tonight is we're going to recognize the Green Business Program. San Mateo County Green Business Program is a partnership of environmental agencies, utilities, and county working together to promote businesses that operate in an environmentally responsible manner. And by joining the program, local businesses learn how to integrate sustainable initiatives into their operations while also increasing profitability. The program is part of a larger California Green Business Program to assist and certify businesses that implement measures to conserve energy and water, minimize waste, prevent pollution, and reduce their carbon footprint. Green businesses conserve energy by using LED lighting and Energy Star rated equipment. They conserve water through the use of low-flow toilets and water flow restrictors. They conserve natural resources by promoting public transit, biking, and walking. They reduce waste by recycling, recomposting, and using materials with recycled content, and take steps to ensure that the safety and healthy workplace for their employees and customers by using low-toxic products. And as one of the charter members of San Mateo County's Green Business Program, San Carlos recognizes the importance of the Green Business Program and encouraging businesses to reduce their impact on the environment. In addition, the program supports the city's efforts to reach its climate action goals. So that's pretty much what's in the proclamation, and what I'd like to do now is come around and present the one that we have who is an attendant, unless, is Melinda Reynard here? I guess not. I had a May attend. Did they all? They're all not here. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, let me come around. Is to Roaring Pajamas. Now, you may wonder what Roaring Pajamas is, and I'm going to let Kent tell you, because they have been in business for a long time. Actually, prior to that, Kent's wife, Melanie, received a proclamation for green business practices when she owned another company called Melanie's Fine Foods. Right. Okay. Well, anyway, I'm going to take off this little will attend thing because it doesn't look too good. But we wanted to thank you and present this green business certificate to you, along with our proclamation. And Kent, if you wouldn't mind, just feel free to say a few words about what Roaring Pajamas is all about.
This is exciting. I get my 15 minutes of.
Yeah.
Won't be 15 minutes.
It won't be 15 minutes.
And it's nice to be corrected too.
Not if Bob has anything to do with it.
What he said was so true. My spouse is a serial entrepreneur, and I think 7 or 8 years ago, this was sort of cutting edge with having green businesses be recognized. And I'll tell you, the county actually comes into your business and really, pulls back the rug and says, what are you doing? What do you need to be doing? And they're very thorough. So we've been really excited, both as residents of San Carlos and as business owners, to be recognized and to be part of San Carlos's efforts to encourage and stimulate green businesses, since they've been consistently innovative around, improving issues around climate change, and incredibly well run, and certainly innovative. So we've been proud to be part of that. A little bit about Roaring Pajamas. We're a local tech company. We do search optimization, social media strategy, and digital strategy consulting for local businesses of usually small to medium-sized businesses. And so we really enjoy helping some of our local small businesses. Ron would be able to speak cogently of that. We've helped his business, and so, yep. So we've been very proud to be part of this this community, and we've been here over 20 years. Really love San Carlos, and we're proud to be part of it, and proud to get this proclamation.
I was just informed that Gina Valet is here. Come on up, Gina. Great to see you. Congratulations. Gina and I share the same business. We're both in the insurance business, so it doesn't have anything to do with the proclamation, by the way. But we're proud to present this certificate to you, plus our proclamation. I hope you heard what this was all about when we came in. And like Kent, you're welcome to say a few words about your business. You're sort of an institution in this town, aren't you?
Yeah, I've been here I'm a State Farm agent on El Camino, and I've been here for about 15, 16 years, and I have been part of the Green Business. I won the Green Business Award in 2010, and I've been with the Chamber all these years. So I just love San Carlos. I love the hometown feel, and thank you very much for the proclamation.
All right, thanks. Okay, I'm going to miss that. All right, the next portion of the agenda is our public comment period. We do have a lot of speaker slips tonight, but let me just go through the sort of the ground rules here. Persons wishing to address the City Council on matters not on the posted agenda may do so. Each speaker is limited to 2 minutes. If an item you're speaking on is not on the agenda, please be advised that the City Council may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed as allowed under the Brown Act. The City Council's general policy is to refer items for staff or to staff for attention or have the matter placed on a future City Council agenda for a more comprehensive action or report and a formal public discussion and input at that time. And by the way, since we have a lot of speakers, I would like you to keep your comments to 2 minutes. We're going to try to get out of here by 10 o'clock. Matt has, he's dealing with some issues, and he needs to be in bed tonight a little after 10. So. For once, we're getting out even before Bob's bedtime, which is amazing. So,
Beg your pardon?
At least I hope we get out before Bob's. Okay, and the first speaker is Betsy Kofed.
Mayor Collins, City Councilman, and other members of our community. It seems appropriate at this first council meeting post-election to reflect on the impact to our community of the council's decision to put Measure V on the ballot. On July 25th, I, along with many others from our community, and many that are here tonight as well, stood here before you to beg you as our elected leadership to not put Measure V on the ballot without a plan. We knew how divisive it was going to get, but you all thought otherwise. I had a personal email from our city manager post-election describing the democratic process as messy. Gentlemen, this process was indeed messy. It pitted neighbor against neighbor. It even permeated into our playgrounds to children who shunned each other because of the rhetoric they heard in their homes about Measure V. You wasted over $500,000 of our money to promote the Black Mountain Project. Yet even with $83,000 more of private funds spent on ads and glossy mailers, Measure V was defeated by 2-1 last Tuesday. So I guess money doesn't buy everything. You asked us to decide, and decide we did. Please do not ever again expect the people of San Carlos to just blindly support whatever project or program you think up in the future. We will not give you our wallets and hope for the best. Your job is to plan, build, and strengthen our community through solid leadership. And that is what we expect of you. You have left us with deep wounds. Our confidence in you has been demolished.
Betsy, I'm sorry, we have a lot of speakers. If you could wrap it up.
We no longer trust you. Please step up and repair the damage. Be the leaders that we expect you to be.
Okay, next speaker is Marshall Tory.
Thank you. Mayor Collins, members of the council, and on a very lighter note, I'm Marshall Tory with the Summerhill Housing Group. Very pleased to be here for a couple of reasons. The first is to invite the council to participate in the 11th annual Applied Materials Turkey Trot, which is being run this Thanksgiving Day in San Jose. This is the largest timed turkey trot in the nation and includes the Mayor's Cup 5K Challenge sponsored by Summerhill Housing Group. Elected officials throughout the region will represent their cities by registering for the turkey trot, and the cities with the most registrants in their respective size category will win the Mayor's Cup trophy. Over 20,000 runners participated last year, and we expect another large turnout. The profits from the turkey trot, all profits will go to the 5 benefiting nonprofits: the Second Harvest Food Bank of Santa Clara and San Mateo counties, Food Bank of Santa Cruz County, the Housing Trust Silicon Valley, the Health Trust, and the Healthier Kids Foundation. I have some pamphlets that I will send to the city clerk that she can provide to you. The second reason that I'm happy to be here is that I started my professional career in San Carlos in 1976 through 1981 as an assistant planner. And it's great to be back here in the chambers. So thanks to the council, to the staff, all the previous councils and staff for working very diligently to make San Carlos the great city that it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marshall. Did you go to Carlmont?
I did.
68?
I graduated in 69.
Thought so. 68.
The traffic was bad then too.
That's true, it was. Next speaker is Bill Kofed.
Mayor Collins and council members and other people that are in the room this evening. On the evening of July 25th, I appeared here before you, and if you recall, I referred to the fact that whenever I went to my bank, they wanted to know what I was going to do with the money that I would borrow, and I asked you to do the same thing. You chose instead to vote 5-0 to go forward with no public plan and no published costs. I've been lied to several times during the time, even threatened that 100 homes would be built if we did not approve the bond measure. You've split this community into parts that will probably take years to overcome. To fix this is your job. You did it. You clean it up. I suspect that instead you'll probably try some more sleight of hand tricks to do that. However, I would hope that now you know those tricks won't work. We're a hurting community with all kinds of major projects being stuffed down our throats. And I believe that soon you'll know that your responsibility is to put this wonderful town back together. One example of fuzzy thinking that you demonstrated is you hired and paid a fancy sum to a consultant to advise you on the Black Mountain Project. He told you that you'd need 73% in an initial survey. You got, as I understand, 62.3, and you went forward anyway and just blew that money. You said, oh, we can get that extra percentage. Even after you spent over $500,000 of our tax money on this project and knew the expected loss, you went ahead. Getting 38% of the vote clearly demonstrates that you just didn't get it. Even with over 80K in yes contributions, some of which you made, in contributions to the note, and only 10K in our coffers, now it appears that you want to blame the citizens of the city rather than accept accountability. It's time you either mend this population or get out of the way so we can bring somebody in that will. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Next is Laureen Letter.
Good evening, council members, Mayor Collins, and those in the room. In November 2014, Godby Pulling told this council that Black Mountain would need 73% favorable rating at the close of the 3-month feasibility study in order to recommend the issue go to ballot. 3 months later, Godby reported Black Mountain pulled 62.6%. At this critical point, our city manager should have met his primary duty to advise the council to call attention to the 11-point deficit and to advise the council to delay in order to develop more detail. It would have been $6,500 well spent. But Mr. Maltby stayed silent. He could have saved hundreds of thousands of general fund dollars that our city council went on to spend toward a measure predicted to fail. But worse than gambling away our tax dollars was the absolute disdain shown by Councilman Olbert towards the citizens of this town in his Save Black Mountain solicitation letter in early September. Rather than speak up to the merits of the measure, he chose to cast down those in disagreement as, quote, an organized opposition group pushing mistruths and mistrust. My concern is this has Councilman Olbert set a new low in city governance? Does this council believe it is acceptable to divide this town by labeling those opposed? For council members to demean diligent citizen volunteers who step into a void of leadership to provide facts to citizens burdened with the responsibility to make an informed decision on a fact-free, excessively costly measure. I have 2 requests. That this council be keenly aware of this strategy to divide and demean, to isolate it, to root it out, so it does not take hold as our standard of governance. We don't want it, we don't need it, we don't deserve it. We want council members who do not view those with differing opinions with disdain. And 2, that this council provide a detailed assessment to the public, identifying where and why things went wrong.
Your time's up.
Okay, and holding accountable those responsible for the waste of tax dollars for the damage to our community. Thank you.
The next speaker is Walter Ranieri. Good, you heard me.
Mike, Mayor, City Council members, staff. Unfortunately, not on the agenda tonight is a discussion of the continuing public safety, public health, disturbance of the peace, and public nuisance issues associated with the dog park at City Hall Park. A petition was given to you last meeting to put this on the agenda. It wasn't on the agenda. Another petition was given to you tonight to put it on a future agenda. Hopefully, that will get your attention. And if not, I responded to a letter the mayor sent me identifying another major issue, the significant modification of the hours of the park as of November 1st. A decision to change those hours appears to have been in violation of San Carlos Municipal Code, Title 6, Chapter 6.04.510, Paragraph E, which states that only you, the council, can, by resolution, change the hours of operation of the dog park. That the decision was made, it was outlined in a letter I sent to the mayor on November 4th, to which I've not received any response. As a result of that and the fact that it's not on the agenda for tonight, a cease, desist, and demand letter was sent to you all, to which I think you now have 27 days to respond, alleging violations of the Brown Act with regard to the decision to change the hours of the park without any meeting or public meeting, and a violation of the municipal code, and the fact that there was no environmental impact report put together, a violation of the California Environmental Quality Act. in support of all of this and in support of the community that is trying to come up with a solution that makes sense for everyone, a petition was circulated. I believe you have that now, and 150 so odd residents have supported the idea of putting this back on the table to talk about the experiment known as City Hall Dog Park.
Mr. Rivera, thank you, but your time is up.
Oh, Yvette, you were to tell me that I had a few more minutes, or a few more seconds. Anyway, I look forward to your response to all of the correspondence that was provided to you.
Thank you. Greg, could you briefly respond to that and let us know what you've learned?
Well, I'm normally, as the mayor announced previously, public comment's not really the place to formally respond, but I am planning on responding to that letter. I have received a copy of it, and the city council will get some advice from me about how to proceed in responding to that in the future.
Okay, thank you. All right, our next speaker is Tamara Northway.
Good evening, Mayor Collins and City Council members. As a citizen of San Carlos, I have a few questions in regard to the Measure V controversy. My first question is, in light of the sound defeat of this poorly conceived measure, why didn't the City Council take the advice of its own polling consultant to advise the Council not to put this measure on the ballot? My next question is, how much money did the City Council spend on the consultant who recommended not to put the Measure V on the ballot? And finally, how much money did the council spend on the collateral material encouraging San Carlos citizens to support putting this measure on the ballot?
Thank you. Next is David Northway. Could we keep the applause down? This is a public comment.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and San Carlos. I wanted to comment more on the process and say thank you for having the community outreach sessions to get community feedback. I encourage you to keep doing this, despite maybe the disconnect that happened this time around. It's a good way to get community feedback. The one comment I wanted to make tonight regarding having those community feedback and outreach sessions is look for increased ways to get maybe more accurate and a wider ranging group of feedback from the entire community to ensure that we avoid the kind of disconnect that happened this time around. But do want to encourage you, despite the disconnect with the Measure V, to keep doing community outreach and poll the citizens for their feedback on your measures. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Next speaker is Andrew Taylor.
Good evening, members of council, and also the members of the public are here tonight. I, too, am here tonight to seek some answers to the multitude of failures in the run-up to Measure V being placed on the ballot. Less than 4 months ago, I stood at this same lectern to address you with the notice that there would be an active opposition to the Black Mountain proposal, and that historically this implies guaranteed defeat. And this was before a full reading of the Godby report, which was even more damning in its conclusions. Just on the face value of the sums of money involved in the abject failure of Measure V, we believe it is not a question of if, but rather who should be held accountable. It is unacceptable that I was openly lied to by the city manager's office when I made a request for basic information back in April. It is also unacceptable that the city's webpage was also used to perpetuate falsehoods to the voting public seeking factual information. On these two issues alone, we believe that the council should consider a dismissal for cause. Now I'd like to turn my focus to Mr. Olbert. Mr. Olbert has now been the very public face and engineer of two issues that have not only pit neighbor against neighbor, but in our opinion have also shown a basic disregard for ethical boundaries that govern a councilperson's role. The reality is that North Crestview and Black Mountain have created wounds in our cherished community that will take a very long time to heal. The solicitation of big money campaign contributions from entities that have pending business in front of the city is a clear conflict. Does Mr. Olbert plan to recuse himself when Windy Hill and recology matters come before the council, or is this just another version of the standard pay to play? As I stated in my election night remarks to the Daily Post, the job of the council and the city manager is to build the community, to strengthen the community, and to build trust within the community. Instead, look at where we are today. The citizens' trust in the functioning and direction of our city is shattered. Beyond repair, my hope is no, but there is an accountability to be held here, and let me add my voice to those telling Mr. Olbert that if he truly cares about this city, then he should do the honorable thing and resign from council.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Next is Vesna Obradovic.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members and the public. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm a structural engineer and I have worked on various developments in the Bay Area. I'm here tonight because of my deep concern and distrust of how the future construction projects or business contracts can even be handled by the same council members who personally fought for Measure V. Here are two issues as examples. Issue number one. For more than 3 months, we were hearing the 100 or more homes could be built in this ravine called Black Mountain. You put your own money on that message, Mr. Olbert, who's not here tonight. During that time, a very preliminary plan for 40 homes was stamped as received by the planning department. There was no indication by the city that this plan even existed. Questions. Why wasn't this disclosed to the public? What part of 40 versus 100 homes didn't you understand? How can you handle a proposal of any future builder that shows up with a large number of homes for this location? Most cities are equipped with knowledge and tools how to make a 40-home proposal be a 20-home development with trails and parks and additional concessions to the cities for free. Example, it took Los Gatos 7 years to approve only 13 homes after 36 homes development was proposed at Shannon Valley Ranch. How can we trust that you know how to do that if you personally don't even believe this to be the case here? Issue number two, donations were accepted from the developers presently building in this town who are asking the same city to change height variances. Donations were accepted from the businesses that have contracts with the city, and these contracts are approved by this council. Questions, how can we trust that you will get the best deal for the citizens of San Carlos when you
please wrap it up.
got into this situation to be indebted to the outside interests? Many of us don't believe that you can be successful, and we need a council that can be successful.
Thank you. Next is Shirley Carlson.
Assistant. Good evening, Mayor Collins and council. I wake up every morning to dogs barking. I listen to them off and on all day long. Every day. You have placed this park in a canyon of tall buildings. The echoing goes on and on. It has affected my quality of life. I don't have quiet in my home. You go home every day, and imagine at the end of the day, you sit in the quiet of your home. Maybe you open your door to listen to the birds outside. I open my door, and I listen to dogs barking or fighting. You have placed this park in a wrong location. You have chosen it wrong. I ask you to think about this. As the summertime comes and the daylight savings hours change, I would like to open my door and listen to birds sing. I will not have that option. You will go home to the quiet of your home and have that option. I have an example of just one example of what we hear one time of the day. And that's probably not amplified enough. Every day, off and on, every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. Next speaker is Claudia Diaz.
evening, Mayor, City Council members. I'm here to talk about the same subject, the dog park. This has negatively impacted my residents at 1441 San Carlos Avenue, which is adjacent right to the park. They can no longer open up their windows because of their dog barking, dog fights, and the smell of urine and dog poop on a daily basis. I have plenty of pictures to share with you all if you're interested in looking at those. This goes on from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. at night, and it's just nonstop. So this was not an exaggeration. The speaker prior to me, this has impacted the quality of life on a daily basis to all of my tenants. It's impacted me in a lot of different ways because I get nothing but complaints on a daily basis as well. You did this without asking any of us who are greatly impacted by this on a daily basis. You did this without asking us that pay the city of San Carlos, like myself, $40,000 in property taxes on an annual basis. You did this without any disregard. I got a comment from Christine Bolin, and when I asked and expressed my concern about this issue, she quoted, and I quote her saying, "The city doesn't have to notify you, it's the city." That is just wrong. I was disgusted by her statement, disappointed by the city, that that's someone that represents you, all of you, that was her remark to me. This is a major hazard, not just for the dogs. I'm a dog lover. I have 2 dogs. I love dogs, but this is a hazard for the environment and for the dogs themselves. So I beg you to revisit this and really consider what we all have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. This is just wrong, and our opinions matter, and you should be listening to that loud and clear and not disregarding someone that impacts the city so greatly with revenue as I do on an annual basis.
Thank you. Next is Brian Papantonio. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Thank you.
Hi, I'm a proud dog owner who lives at 633 Elm Street. On a daily basis, I love to walk my dog, but I can no longer do so in my own neighborhood because of all the off-leash dogs that are running around on the sidewalk in front of the dog park. And it's become a huge safety issue for both me and my dog, who I love. I live at home with him, just me and the dog, so I'm very protective of him. With the reduced amount of hours that are because of the daylight savings and the expanded dog park hours for no reason, I now have dark objects jutting out from bushes, behind bushes, and greeting me and my dog. Sometimes they're friendly, and sometimes they're not. And I'm just warning you that this is, it's not a imaginary issue, it's a real issue. I would have loved to be able to reason with the dog owners and have them just apologize for having their dog off the leash, but all I'm greeted with is rudeness. And I believe the responsible dog owners of San Carlos promised that this would never happen because they're responsible. But it seems to be not just the minority, it seems to be almost a majority of the dog owners are very irresponsible. And the irony is that this is all happening in front of the police station, and when I call the police to report the problems, I don't get a response. I mean, they say they'll come, but usually the dog owners leave before that can happen. So I ask you, what would you do in that situation? What would you do if you were me? And if you don't know the answer, then I suggest putting it on the agenda for next time to come up with a solution on how you can empower your own citizens to solve their problems, because I don't know what else to do. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Next is Mary Farrell.
I'll be very brief. I'm speaking on behalf of the former No on Measure V committee, and I am asking, just for the record, since Mr. Olbert is not here, for the record, I'm asking Mr. Olbert that, telling him that we're confident that we can get the 2,800 signatures to go to ballot to recall. And we would ask that he try and save the city over $130,000 for a recall election and resign. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary. Next is Dorothy Dale.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I come before you tonight to discuss my concerns about the dog park. I went to a Parks and Rec Commission meeting in June about my concerns, and I'm sad to say that all my concerns have come to fruition. Number one is the constant dog barking, as my neighbors have previously said. I did have to call the police one night, as it was after 8 o'clock in the evening, and this was before all the time changes. And an officer came and had to kick those people out of the dog park, which I'm sure we could have a better resource of police officers than patrolling the dogs. Number two is the parking on the street. It's so dangerous and busy now most times of the day. I'm sure you've all seen that Elm Street is packed parking now. Third is the poop and the smell, environmental impact. I've resided across the street for 12 years now and have always been happy and proud to say that I live in San Carlos, in the city of good living. Now, I'm not so sure. I'm stressed and I'm saddened by the decision that the City Council has made to put a dog park in the wrong spot. I suggest that you put the citizens a priority ahead of the dogs. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dorothy. Priya Joseph.
Hello. I've stood here twice before and asked you guys to agendize Sunshine Ordinance. I think Measure V proves more than ever that you clearly need Sunshine Ordinance, you need oversight. A city shouldn't need, but you've proven over and over again that you clearly need. So I hope you guys agendize that. The second thing, I emailed you last Friday. I actually fell on Holly Street running with my dogs. So public safety, try to agendize that. Item number 3, I actually emailed Jay and Jeff Maltby. When the drivers of the trucks turn right from Old County to Holly Street, they see the sign, the truck sign, no truck sign, only after they've made the wide turn. So you need something opposite across saying you can't turn. So take care of it.
Thank you, Priya. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to address the council in public comment? Come on up.
Thank you, your Mayor Ron Collins, and the rest of the City Council members. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm going to very briefly, and please let me know when 2 minutes are up. Yeah, I want to respect that. Very briefly comment on what I have come here to comment on, because I am burning to make another comment. But first I'll make this one. Please, will the intersection Morse and Walnut be checked again? Because this is a hazardous area. The dip is hazardous. The dip needs to be adjusted as far as the grade on it. Because if you go over there, if your car's too low, you can really have a sudden jolt, which I did, and exacerbated an injury that I already had. So I would like to request that that be reviewed. The other thing that I want to say, I am going to say to the entire room that's here, and this is mostly for the room that's here, and this is for my respect of the mayor and each individual council member who has given their time to improve the city of San Carlos and help residents to do this. My grandmother, I say it this way, I beg your pardon. My grandmother was Rachel Solomon.
You have to speak to.
Oh, I beg your pardon, I'm sorry. Thank you, sorry.
They can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Well, in case anyone wanted to throw darts at me, they could throw it to the front. But now they have to throw it to the back. My grandmother would rise up from her grave if she heard, and she was very active in the city council and in the city of San Carlos, she would rise up from her grave if she heard the disrespect that I have sat here and heard towards the mayor and the members of the city council. And I think it is abhorrent. I just think it is abhorrent. And I want to say that. Not everybody, but there were enough. And we know who they were, and we heard who they were. And I heard who they were. If nobody agrees with me, I don't care. But I am voicing my opinion, and thank you for the opportunity to do this.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak before the council?
I didn't sign a paper. Is that okay?
Yep, you can fill one out later.
Okay, Mayor, Council, everyone else. We get respect when we're respectful to everyone. I feel a lot of disrespect going on in this room. But anyhow, I live right across the street from the adult center. Every single day I'm awakened. I have a bad back. I have a lot of problems. I have double pane windows. And the dog is right in my ear every day, every morning, early, before I ever think of getting up. It is bad. You guys need to come over and visit us and hang out a little bit, and you'll see how bad it is. The dogs need to go somewhere else, and that has to be done soon. This is ridiculous what it's done. Prop V, ridiculous what was done. The transit village, I think that's ridiculous. The new building, maybe on San Carlos Avenue, maybe. I don't know that. Anyhow, that's all I have to say. And I don't like you being nasty to people when you cut them off. That's nasty. Your time's up. You can be a little more pleasant to us. We are here because we are respectful to people that are respectful to us. And we try to step up to the plate and stand up for what we believe in. We're not here because it's a joke. We believe and we come here. And you treat us nicer. And I like a little more smile on your faces instead of you're not listening to us.
We heard every word you said.
We're listening to you.
For your information, I find it disrespectful to let people go on and not give the others a chance to speak.
Is my time up? I didn't know that.
No, you've still got 10 seconds if you'd like.
I'm done, though.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for your comments and opinions. Would anyone else like to speak? Okay, we're going to move on. The next item is approval of the consent calendar. These items are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless members of the council, staff, or public request specific items to be removed for a separate action.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to have item J looked at separately.
J. All right. Any other items?
No, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar items A through I, please.
I second.
All right.
Councilmember Grisilli?
Yes.
Councilmember Grocott?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Olbert, not present. Mayor Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, could I make a suggestion?
Yes.
That we take item J now since Mr. Grocott brought it up, just in case we run late and he won't be able to speak to it?
Certainly.
That be okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
All right. Go ahead, Matt.
So this item has to do with adopting a resolution to authorize staff to issue a request for proposals. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. I got the wrong one there. Hold on a second. I was reading from the wrong thing. So this is a recommendation to adopt a resolution approving agreements for various professional services for capital improvement programs in the amount not to exceed $4.5 million. I don't see our public works director here on this, so I I'm just going to voice my concern, see if there's any other concern from council on this. I'm okay with approving this, except that it's asking to have a 2-year, possibly a 2-year extension on each of these contracts, and those would be, so that would amount to possibly a 3-year contract in total, and would be left to the city manager or the public works director to make that decision. And I just don't feel like we should be following that kind of policy. I've voiced that concern before, that when we put out RFPs for contracts, at least every couple of years, they should be thoroughly reviewed and vetted and put out for another RFP. In this case, when these were put out, I think it said in the staff report there were 47 responses, which shows that there's a lot of firms out there that would like to do work with the city. So we could be more judicious in giving, or spending our money than to just spend it on certain contractors that we keep for 3 years. I don't think that's necessary, and I think we should be taking a closer look at these contracts on at least a 2-year basis, and that's not what's being done here.
Okay. I don't know, Grace, can you speak to it on behalf of Jay?
Grace Lee, city engineer, and the reason for the initial 1-year contract and then the optional 2-year extension, and each year it has to be extended by the city manager. The reason being is we're so close to the end of the fiscal year, 15-16, and the 2-year budget cycle is coming up, 16-17 and 17-18. So in order to, and the reason for the on-call contract is if the consultant is providing us excellent service, then we can expeditiously move the CIP project along. So being so close to the end of the 2-year budget cycle, if we put them on board and they do well, then we want the opportunity to continue so that we get into the next 2-year budget cycle with a head start, basically having consultant on board already. And to your, we did get a very good response in terms of our request for proposal, and so having that every 1 year, having that sort of a check-in, keeps the consultants on their toes. Basically, they have to give us good performance, or else we can change them out every year. So there's still that check and balance in the language in terms of city manager having to approve.
If I may ask a question then, so wouldn't the other option be to go ahead and do a contract for the balance of this year, and it might be just a matter of course, but so that we're on track for 2-year approval with a check-in, just to bring it back?
So
you see what I'm saying? That
right.
you would just go ahead and bring those contracts back, not to just the city manager, but at least I think to give consideration to the council, and this would be sort of a hybrid of what I'm ultimately after, would be to go ahead and do the RFP as you're suggesting, or I guess you've already done it, right? So do the contract for the balance of this budget year, and then at least bring those contracts back to the council for us to review and give us a performance report on how the contractors have been doing, and then we could approve it for another 2 years if everything's working out well. I think we've, even with what we've seen tonight with all the comment, people are looking closely at how we spend our money and how we do contracting and who we do contracting with and so forth. And I would just feel a lot more comfortable if it weren't just left to the city manager. No disrespect to the city manager or his office, but to give the council the opportunity to review those contracts and the performance and get a report from the Public Works Department on that, so that we have some input into it. As we're the elected officials, and we're the ones that have to ultimately oversee the budget and how this city spends its money, not the city manager. And so that's, Mr. Mayor, that's how I would rather see this go down, as opposed to the way it's being proposed tonight.
And I just want to clarify that the main concern in terms of consuming time is the RFP process. And I understand about the authorization.
And that's Mr. Mayor, if I may, that's why I'm suggesting at this point sort of a hybrid model of what I'd ultimately like to see. And that would be that we wouldn't go through another RFP at the end of this budget cycle, but that we would just bring back the contracts at the end of the 6 months to have a look and then approve a 2-year contract. So we'd be approving a 6-month contract, get us at the end of the fiscal year, and then look at those same companies for approving a 2-year contract. That's what I'm suggesting.
Mr. Mayor, I don't think you were, I think Jay should be the one standing there. I think the city manager, no disrespect to Tara, the city manager should speak to both. Can we postpone this? Is this a time-sensitive item?
Can we continue it?
Continue it till the next meeting?
Next meeting.
2 weeks?
Yes, it can.
Government time, that's forever.
Yep.
So, okay. Yeah, why don't we, I'd suggest we bring, so we can have Jay standing here and Jeff over there. That's what I would suggest.
I think it's a good suggestion.
All right, so item J is then continued.
So do we need to make a motion,
We need
Mr.
a
City
vote on
Attorney?
that?
All right,
Okay.
I make a motion that we continue this item until our next city council meeting.
Second.
All right, Yvette?
Councilmember Grisilli?
Yes.
Councilmember Grocott?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Olbert, not present. Mayor Collins?
Yes.
And no disrespect, Grace, to what
No, not
your
at all.
explanation, but I think it's more Jay and the city manager's point on these items. Thank you.
Okay, normally we would be moving on to item 8, which is a consideration of adopting a resolution amending the general plan map and introducing an ordinance to amend the zoning district map to designate the property at 191 Lemoore Drive a single-family residence. And the only reason I read that is because it is a public hearing, and I want to know if there's anybody who would like to speak on this. I do have some speaker cards, but they don't appear to be on this item. So,
Mr. Mayor, I think it should be pointed out that the reason we're doing this is because the applicant was unable to attend tonight. Is that correct?
correct. That is, they requested that the item be continued because they could not be here.
Thanks.
Okay. Do we need a
motion
we need a motion and a vote to continue?
You would need a motion to continue to the next meeting.
If there's no one here to speak, then I make a motion that we continue this item until our next meeting.
I second.
Councilmember Grisilli?
Yes.
Councilmember Grocott?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Olbert, not present. Mayor Collins?
Yes. All right. Item 9 is a study session to receive a presentation concerning community choice aggregation.
We have with us this evening a group from the county led by Supervisor Carol Groom.
Oh, hi, Carol.
Good evening, and thank you very much for giving us this time. I want to introduce our team that's here tonight to make a
Why don't you
presentation.
introduce yourself first?
Okay, my name is Carol Groom, and I'm a member of the County Board of Supervisors. Thank you. I want to introduce our team led by Jim Egermeyer, who is the Director of the Office of Sustainability, Kirsten Pringle, who works in that office, David Silberman from our County Council's office, and Sean Marshall from Lean Energy, who is working as a consultant with us as the county is taking on a community choice energy program. As Mr. Johnson said earlier, he's been part of our advisory committee and attending our monthly meetings as we begin to gear this up. But we are making the rounds to city councils and to planning commissions to discuss this. And so without further ado, I'm going to reintroduce Sean, and she will kick off the presentation.
Thank you, Supervisor Groom. Good evening, council members. Thank you for having us here this evening. I have been informed that we have about 10 to 15 minutes for the formal presentation. So I'll move through these slides and then certainly entertain any questions with my colleagues as well. So I just want to make sure. Thank you. Okay, so we always like to start off with just a basic definition for what is this thing called community choice energy. CCE leverages the market power of group purchasing for the purpose of procuring and/or developing power on behalf of a single municipality or a group of municipalities that decide to procure electricity on behalf of their constituents. CCE is a program that partners with the existing utility, in this case Pacific Gas and Electric, that continues to handle all of the consolidated billing, the grid infrastructure, and all of the line maintenance that's required in a traditional utility model, so that your end-use customers enjoy affordable rates, local control, and greater amounts of clean energy onto the grid. What are the benefits? Oh, sorry, I went too quick. What are the benefits of community choice? The potential benefits of a program here in San Mateo County are that the local community has control over the sourcing of its electrical power on behalf of its community. It offers consumers a choice where currently there is no choice. We exist in a monopoly utility environment, and so currently we have no choice over our electrical provider. So far in the state of California, CCE programs have been offering significantly cleaner power supply, as well as stable and currently less expensive electricity rates. The program is ratepayer funded. It is not taxpayer subsidized. So that's an important thing to understand. These are not new revenues. These are redirected generation revenues from the utility that support the program. The CCE program provides a funding source for energy programs such as energy efficiency, energy storage, electric vehicle, and any other sort of local energy-related programs that the county and the cities who are members of the program might like to participate in. So why did Supervisors Groom and Pine decide to get interested in community choice? The first really has to do with the fact that the program responds to a culture that you have here that espouses innovation, clean technology, and environmental health. Supervisors Pine and Groom became aware of existing programs in Marin County and Sonoma, more recently joined by the city of Lancaster in Los Angeles, and have been studying the positive results of those programs. CCE definitely responds to the climate action plan goals that many cities have passed here in the last couple of years. Lots of interest in some of the local economic benefits, not only jobs, but also the revenue potential that comes into the county for, as we say, leveraged opportunities for new energy programs. And there are a number of local advocacy groups that have been supporting the effort. To date, the feedback from the public and the business community has been positive, and so the county had made a decision earlier in this year to move forward with the investigation of community choice for San Mateo. Here are the basic program features and how the program works. The way it would work here in the county is that the county would form, and its cities would form a joint powers agency in the county. Local governments, local cities, as well as the unincorporated county could participate in the JPA by passing an ordinance to enable community choice, as well as passing a resolution to join in the JPA agreement. As mentioned previously, the utility continues to provide consolidated customer billing, customer service, and line maintenance. The community choice electric generation charges will appear as a new line item on a customer's bill. All the other charges are the same, including care, medical baseline, and other low-income programs serving special needs communities. Those all remain the same. They are not impacted by community choice energy. Community choice becomes the default electric service provider for the county and whichever municipalities decide to join the JPA. All customers will receive a minimum of 4 opt-out notifications. Typically, that's more, and can return to PG&E service at any time. I think that's a really important thing to underscore, that in essence, community choice, if, for example, San Carlos decided to join the JPA, what it is essentially doing is giving your residents and businesses a choice. If they so choose to opt out of the program, they can do so at any time. Important to note that the California Public Utilities Commission certifies the community choice energy utility, implementation plan, as well as the utility service relationship and other regulatory requirements throughout all of the operations of the program. The way that the JPA will work is that there will be a board of directors that will be one director per member jurisdiction, except for the county. There will also be an alternate member, which does not have to be an elected official. The primary does need to be an appointed elected official from each member municipality. Important to point out that the assets and liabilities of the Joint Powers Agency are legally and financially separate from the assets and liabilities of the member jurisdictions. There's a very important legal firewall that is established. It was one of the most important things that we dealt with when we did this up in Marin, and it is codified in California case law. Cities may leave the Joint Powers Agency prior to program launch if certain economic and environmental goals do not meet certain thresholds. And what that means is if the program cannot be launched with rates that are equal to or lower than PG&E, with a renewable energy content that is greater than PG&E's current portfolio, and offering significant reductions in greenhouse gases, the member jurisdictions may leave the program without any further obligation prior to launch. So that's what we're offering up as a sort of a stopgap insurance measure prior to launch. There is no cost for the cities to join during this period. The county is providing the startup funding, and important to note that all of that funding will be repaid to the county relatively quickly after customer launch. Those funds are repaid through ratepayer revenues, typically within the first year of launch of the program. Potentially, there will be a small fee for cities who choose to join after the first enrollment period. The deadline for jurisdictions to pass the Community Choice Ordinance and the JPA resolution is the end of February 2016. Maybe worth noting that the county just passed its second reading of the CCE ordinance last week, and it is scheduled to hear the resolution issue on, I believe, the 19th of November. Excuse me? 17th. I do that all the time. Excuse me. 17th of November. Here's a quick overview of the results of the technical study. This technical study was performed by Pacific Energy Advisors. It was released at the end of September, has been reviewed by the advisory committee. What did the tech study look at? It looks at 6 elements. One is the overall size of the program, the potential size of the program in terms of megawatt hours and peak demand levels here in the county of San Mateo. It looks at forecasted demand into the future, supply availability, as well as the impact of other compliance issues. What is the ability of the program to be rate competitive? Looking at the development of different power supply, renewable energy supply scenarios and their impact on greenhouse gas reductions, jobs, etc., as well as a robust risk analysis, which is all part of the technical study that can be found online at the county's website, as well as the Peninsula Clean Energy website. The 3 scenarios, let me back up. There are 2 sort of overarching assumptions that run through the technical study, and that is that Peninsula Clean Energy has made an initial determination not to use what they call Category 3 unbundled renewable energy certificates in the supply portfolio, as well as nuclear and coal-based energy have been excluded from all power supply scenarios. So the 3 scenarios that the study looks at, just as a kind of placeholder, the scenario 1 is the low-end bookend, which is launch with a minimum of 35% renewable energy, scaling up to 50% by 2030. Scenario 2 is a midline, looks at a minimum 50% renewable energy content, scaling to 75% by 2030. Scenario 3 is 100% renewable energy content with the most significant GHG reductions at, basically zero emissions in that supply portfolio. It's important to understand that these metrics assume a late 2016, perhaps early 2017 time horizon for launch. The county is looking at a late 2016 launch. And the current renewable energy content for Pacific Gas and Electric as of 2014 is 27%. So you can get an idea of the differential between those renewable energy portfolios that the county is choosing to look at. Here's a quick thumbnail overview of the results of the year one being 2017 of the program. We've already reviewed the renewable energy content. The rate savings for scenario one being the 35% renewable, has the potential to go down 6%. For scenario 2, a rate reduction of approximately 4%. And for scenario 3, which you'll recall is that 100% renewable product, that actually would carry a price premium of approximately 2% for the average size household. The assumed participation rates in each of these scenarios, for scenarios 1 and 2, assumed participation rate of 85%, put another way, a 15% opt-out rate. If the county were to go with scenario 3 as its standard option, we would be looking at perhaps a 75% retention rate. Greenhouse gas emissions tell an interesting story here. In scenario 1, there is actually a net increase of greenhouse gas emissions, which from that perspective then sort of makes this one a non-starter. Why is that? It's because Peninsula Clean Energy is not planning to procure any nuclear, and nuclear is considered a GHG-free resource. Pacific Gas and Electric has, I think, on the order of 22% nuclear in its power portfolio. And so from a competitive advantage, that scenario 1 does not compete well with Pacific Gas and Electric, and in this case then potentially becomes, as I said, a non-starter. The midline, there is a net decrease in year 1 of 75,000 metric tons of greenhouse gases. In scenario 3, a significant decrease of 204,000 metric tons in year 1. Right now, that 100% product is likely to be a voluntary, what we call opt-up. If a customer chooses to go the 100%, as I do at my home, you can voluntarily opt up into that product. No final determination as yet what the default power product will be, but likely to be somewhere in that neighborhood of the midline option. The report also covers a fairly significant list of risks and uncertainties as well as mitigation strategies. I'm glad to report that since Marin launched in 2010, we have dealt with a number of these risks very effectively, as has Sonoma, Lancaster, and then there are a number of communities also looking at CCA up and down the state. The first of which, of course, is PG&E rate uncertainty. We do not know with any certainty what PG&E's rates will do. Historically, they have increased on an average of 3%. In 2016, gen rates are planned to reduce slightly. The exit fees, or power charge and difference adjustment, is planned to go up. And so there's actually a tough bogey to meet in 2016. The tech study goes through all of that and still comes back with some modest rate savings at this midline point. The length of the current wholesale energy price trough. Right now, natural gas prices are at historic lows. There are no projections for that necessarily to change anytime soon. But again, you don't have a future crystal ball into the future, and you don't know exactly how long that wholesale price trough will last. Availability of large hydro resources to meet the carbon-free content goals. Most of the carbon-free content for Peninsula Clean Energy would be met by hydro because it will not be met through nuclear. So with the current drought, this is obviously an area of concern and something that we would need to mitigate and plan for going forward. Opt-out rate uncertainty. Right now, the Sonoma Clean Power opt-out rate is about 9% or 91% customer retention. In Lancaster, it's running at about 5%. So this report anticipates a 15% opt-out rate as a conservative estimate for the program in San Mateo. We do need to secure credit for not only JPA operations, working capital, but also for power supply going forward. That is something that the county will be working on beginning in 2016. And we also are very mindful of future CCA legislation and regulatory matters that come up all the time. Okay, so that is the review of the risks and their mitigations. Key findings. I'm just going to cut to the chase here and say that there is no correct answer on this, but in general, the tech study does find that Peninsula Clean Energy could be economically viable while also achieving city and county environmental goals. Here's a quick overview of the planning process that the county is following with respect to the CCA development. And we are currently in phase 2. That phase is scheduled to end at the end of February with, by the end of February, we will know which cities are interested in participating in the JPA in the first round. And then in phase 3, we really move aggressively into program implementation. There's a lot to do to get your energy services, contracts, your credit, and basically your agency started up. The current plan is to launch the program and begin serving customers in October of 2016. Next steps, near-term next steps. The County Board of Supervisors, as we mentioned, will be considering the adoption of the JPA resolution on the 17th. The next advisory committee meeting will be on Thursday, November 19th. The city councils will be agendizing this matter and considering it between now and the end of February. It is planned that the first board of directors meeting of Peninsula Clean Energy will happen in March. That may come in early March, with the second meeting in March planned to adopt the implementation plan and get the wheels turning with respect to approval from the CPUC. So that'll conclude my remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions, Matt? Are there any other? Sorry. That's it?
That's it?
They can answer questions of.
Yeah, all right. I have a number of questions. You started off with saying that there's no competition for PG&E, and maybe you know, maybe you don't, but I'm just curious why there is no choice, but there is, to choose a competitor in the market for the customer. Yet there's this possibility of competition that's coming in this fashion, apparently. Do you understand what I'm saying? Why is this allowed, but the law apparently doesn't allow for any other kind of competition to come around?
So some states in our country have.
I'm not interested in other states. I'm interested in California and San Mateo County.
Promise.
So
some states are what they call retail energy states. They're fully deregulated, which means that there is totally open competition and a separation between the generation and the grid and the supply side, the traditional utility role. California is predominantly a regulated energy state, and so the only way that you can access competition is to pass a piece of legislation, which was done in 2002, which is AB 117, enabling community choice energy. The other form of competition is direct access, and that is capped and specifically for small commercial customers.
So if you don't mind, and if you know, why did the state legislature choose to allow such limited competition? To me, this sounds a little bit like it's like the school issue, where schools are a monopoly as well, but we're going to allow for charter schools. So it's a very limited piece of competition that's allowed as far as if you're going to have access to public funding. So it's a little bit different model, but in this case, it's curious to me that the state legislature said we're going to allow competition, but it's going to be very limited, and it's going to be this model.
Yeah, I wasn't there in 2002 at the state legislature, but I believe it was an incremental step toward competition and one that was palatable, at least on a limited basis, to the utilities, which fought opening up the market.
Okay. In your technical study, it talks about the state laws that are going to require cities to show reduction in greenhouse gases. So will not PG&E have to respond to those same laws in what it offers its customers in order for those goals to be met?
PG&E doesn't necessarily have a requirement for a climate action plan, and so I did not draft the technical study. Let me be clear that my organization did not author that. So there's a difference. I mean, if you're talking about AB 32 requirements, yes, the utilities do have AB 32 requirements. What Community Choice is responding to at the municipal level in a very direct fashion are climate action plans. And that is one of the benefits that we see. I don't know if that responds to your question. If it doesn't, feel free to ask again.
No, I think it does. It shows to me that there's a big gaping hole in the law.
And Matt, if I might also add, there's two ways to attack emissions targets. One way is upstream in terms of the generation, and another way, which we work on a lot with the climate action plan, is on the consumption side and the efficiency side. So just because there may be changing mix doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get the reductions, if that makes sense.
No, but that's okay. Now, you said your organization didn't do the technical study, but just so when I go back and read it again, I understand what it's pointing at. There's a couple of charts that talk about in year 10, we'll achieve this. What is year 10? Because there's some charts that show 2030, 2020 as being the extreme outlying years, but there's a couple of charts in here that talk about year 10. By year 10, this will be achieved. What is year 10?
Year 10 in this case would be the end of 2026, beginning of 2027. That assumes a program launch of October 2016.
So 26, 27, years 26 and 27. Okay, very good. And how to compare these years to the state law requirements? Give me the most extreme condition that the state's going to put on, what year and what goals?
So the most recent that you, I'm sure, are aware of is the passage of SB 350, which happened in this last legislative session. The governor increased the state renewable portfolio standard to 50% by the year 2030. So earlier, we were talking about the different scenarios and the fact that currently PG&E is at 27%. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is that ratchets up over time to meet a bogey of 50% renewable content by 2030. What Peninsula Clean Energy is talking about doing potentially, if it launches at the 50% or greater level, is that it would actually be meeting that renewable energy target in year 1 or by the end of 2016. So it's actually doubling down on the renewable energy and meeting these.
That's one of the scenarios.
Yeah, that's that midline scenario that I mentioned. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. PG&E offers reduced rate programs for low-income households. So that's part of their mix, and that works obviously into their whole business plan and their rate program, is they have to, one person's paying one rate because they know they're going to have a certain participation level of low-income households who are going to get a reduced rate, and it all has to be paid for, and they have to make their investors happy and so forth. So is this program going to offer that same kind of thing?
It does not interrupt those programs. So I mentioned earlier that it does. So when those customers are cut over, they do not lose any of the benefits that they have with special programs like CARE, medical baseline, those sorts of things remain with PG&E and for the customer. Remember that the Peninsula Clean Energy and Pacific Gas and Electric share the customer. So those customers still have access to those programs. It does not change.
Who pays for it then? PG&E does or CCA?
It's on the charged on the transmission and distribution side of the bill. So just as it always has, it's paid for by all ratepayers,
Okay.
as it currently is.
All right. In the technical study, it mentions a 2.7 million startup cost, and it talks about working capital of 20 million. Sounds like that is to start off. So that would be done through some kind of loan and then recaptured by the rates over time?
Yeah, so I want to caution that 20 million is not necessarily the number. It will all depend on what Peninsula Clean Energy, first of all, what number of cities decides to join. So then you kind of know what is your customer base. Mm-hmm. And then from there will be a phase-in of customers over a period of a couple of years. So the technical study assumes, just for the sake of argument, 50% of the county comes in the first phase. We've discussed that since. We believe that's potentially pretty high. And so I just want to caution you not to get stuck on this $20 million number. Still a high number. It'll likely be, potentially more in the order of 10 million. Mm-hmm. But yes, to answer your question, that's capitalized through a banking relationship. So the JPA will have a line of credit for its working capital, and then it will have credit needs to enter into the first power supply contract, which acts as a bridge loan until the revenues start to be generated and come in through those customers. So as I mentioned before, the credit guarantee and the loans are refinanced and paid off. The county will be paid off generally within 1 to 2 years for its initial startup investment. So once you have that ratepayer revenue through the door, that agency will still carry debt, but it begins to be self-sufficient.
And the last question I had, it was a little tough to grab these numbers, and I think they're probably like this $20 million figure that you mentioned. This question refers to something I asked about before, and then I don't know if I wrote a letter to the editor, to the Daily Journal. The operation cost concerned me as an ongoing as an ongoing thing, and knowing that the JPA will have to have, I assume there'll be county employees. No? Okay. So that answers one question I had, but paying for the salaries and, benefit packages and so forth of new employees that'll have to be there, whether they're county or not county, that still have to be paid for. And it looked like in the report, it's estimating ballpark around 5 million in the first year, and then it bumps up to, I think, 8 million in the second year. I think probably part of that's because the first year is not a total first year, right? Yeah. And so the 8 million is more like the annual thing, and then it kind of creeps up, obviously over time with 2 or 3% increases. I didn't do the math on it, but is that a pretty good estimate of what it will take to run the JPA, staff-wise and so forth?
So I think a better way to look at it is to look at what we actually see in the marketplace right now. So what we see is that Marin Clean Energy and Sonoma Clean Power have an average administrative cost of about 3.5% of the total program operations. So that those program operations are all funded through ratepayer revenues that are redirected from the electrical generation from PG&E. So it's not new revenues, it's redirected from the utility into the agency. Really important to understand that 85% of that revenue goes back out the door to pay for the cost of energy, because now you've got to put energy on the grid on behalf of these customers that you're now serving. So 85 to 90% goes back out to pay for the cost of energy. Then you have about 3.5% for administration, and then that delta, what's left, is used for not only to fund your reserve account, but also to leverage up for additional funding for energy efficiency, EV charging stations, whatever you all might decide to do with your special programs. That's what that piece is there for.
So I appreciate you giving that answer. And this is, for us, we have day jobs, so it'd be nice to have that kind of chart, what you just, something charted in this technical report. Then there's a draft. So, because you have to think of it, for us, this is like opening a utility company for dummies. And it's nice to have things to look at that break that down.
We could do like a pie chart, perhaps, that breaks down expenditures. Sure.
Okay, Bob?
You answered one of the things about it's going to be a nonprofit. So I'll be honest with you, this is way too technical for me to look at. And I looked at this and I went, oh, what's wrong with this schedule, that schedule? And I went, okay, that's great. It's wonderful. When we get to vote on it, I'll be looking at every line because I'm a numbers guy. But I looked at it today and I said, year 10, year 7. Oh, what's the difference between 14 and 15? It's this is worse than a traffic study, in my opinion. But anyway, nonprofit. So basically, at the end of the day, you hope to have a little extra sort of for R&D. Something like that. Okay, fine. What's to stop PG&E? If I'm PG&E, I'm going, man, I'm going to lose customers. I'm going to lose revenue. I'm like a monopoly here. I'm just going to lower my rates and tell my investors, hey, I know you're going to get less money, but we're going to put these guys out of business.
Okay.
What's to stop them from doing that?
Great. There's the thing that stops them from doing that is a bill that was passed in 2011, SB 790, created a utility code of conduct, which essentially prohibits the utilities from publicly marketing against a CCA program. Okay. Why? Right. Because the original statute was written to require full cooperation. I also really want to be clear about two things. The utility loses electrical generation customers, but does not lose customers. They're basically sharing their customers now.
Okay,
they may not like it. Fair enough. The third item to point out is that the CCE program has to account for that loss of customers. So we mentioned in the slide deck before that there's an exit fee, power charge and difference adjustment that is charged, and all of the CCE's rates have to account for not only your overhead administration, but also that exit fee. And so you have to be competitive with the utility even given that exit fee. So they're paid for their stranded assets, so none of the bundled service customers are left holding the bag.
I wasn't speaking to the customers. I was just playing.
But through the utility, but
through the utility.
In essence, they serve the customer.
So let's assume that we get lots of cities in the county that sign up, but they're all 5,000. There's Woodside, Portola Valley, Half Moon Bay, Atherton. They all sign up. And maybe you have like 10 cities, but they don't really add up to a lot of population because Daly City doesn't want to do it, South City doesn't want to do it, San Mateo doesn't want to do it, Redwood City doesn't want to do it. So is there a minimum of people, of cities? What's the benchmark?
Well, assuming that the county moves forward with this, you've already met your threshold. We launched in Marin County, and I should be really clear. I've been in this field since 2006, and I was on the original board of directors for Marin Clean Energy. And when we launched, we were the first. We launched with 7,000 customers. It was a very narrow margin, so I am not at all suggesting that that's a good thing to do, but I am suggesting that you can have a fairly small program and still be economically viable. I don't think that's going to be the case here in San Mateo County, and I don't know if anyone
I don't think it is either,
cares
but
to.
I'm just asking the question.
Sure.
So there's no minimum, in other words. So if the county goes on, but isn't the county unincorporated? So what are we talking about?
Yeah, you would not want to launch under 10,000.
Okay, so basically 10,000 is the number. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we get Woodside, Portola Valley, Atherton, we're going to go. Okay. What is unbundled renewable energy certificates?
Oh boy, those are so fun. So what a renewable energy certificate is that it confers the environmental attributes, okay, of 1 megawatt hour of power has always 1 renewable energy credit. In the state of California, in order to meet your compliance metrics, there are 3 categories of renewable energy certificates.
I know I shouldn't have asked this question.
Sorry. The first category is in-state, that they're the most expensive, and the certificate goes with the electronic.
You can stop. Just stop.
Okay.
They're
less valuable.
They're excluded from the scenario, so
They're
that's
less
fine.
valuable.
I don't need to have an energy.
Fair enough.
Sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but what I don't need to know, I don't need to know.
Okay,
so,
fair enough.
Okay. That's all I had right now.
All right. Cameron, did you want to save your comments, or you want to make them now? Or
I'll save my comments.
All right. I just had a couple questions. Why was nuclear and coal energy excluded from the scenarios? Do we not use them very much? I mean, no, I know we have nuclear power plants in California, but I don't know if we have any coal generation.
So there's a policy response and a practical response. The practical response is that The utilities own the nuclear generation, and it becomes part of their power portfolio. So there really isn't nuclear power to contract for available in the state of California. That's the practical response. The policy response is that at least in the first 3 CCAs, the boards of directors have chosen not to procure coal or nuclear, just feeling like it is not as clean a product as they might otherwise choose.
Do we use much coal in this state?
Not a lot, but there is some in our what they call system power.
Okay. All right. And then just a general comment. It seems to me that isn't the entire purpose of this program to produce cleaner energy?
Yes.
Okay. So I think it seemed to be lost in the whole entire conversation.
Not true in other parts of the country, but here it is.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I just thought it was important that we keep focus on that particular one. Do we know which scenario is going to be pursued?
Want to take that?
Hopefully not number 1, scenario 1, right? Because that just increases.
But I'll let
a
the
non-starter.
supervisor.
Isn't that status quo?
The advisory committee and the staff are leaning toward number 2, but that will really be a decision made by the Joint Powers Authority. But I think that the combination of low greenhouse emissions, not a lot of fossil fuels, and local control, it will probably determine that decision.
Okay, great. All right, do we have any other presentations, comments, or anything? Okay, great. Oh, now you want to, okay. Sorry, Cameron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I think you're going to wait till the end, but fine.
I just wanted to share some of my observations having participated in this process for 6 months or so now. First of all, I wanted to thank Supervisor Groom and Supervisor Pine, who's not here, for leading this process, and to Sean for facilitating and teaching us all. Bob, yes, exactly, Bob. You think this is tough. I've learned more about electricity policy and how you generate power and get it to your home than you ever want to hear. So I want to thank you also for running a process that was very inclusive. So this was a stakeholder process that had, I don't know, what did we have, more than 24 members of the steering committee, 37 members of the steering committee. It included not only elected officials, not only folks from environmental groups, but there was a representative from PG&E, electrical workers who participated. It was run like any other government meeting. There was a posted agenda, a packet. There was public comment at every meeting. So it's been a very inclusive and very well-run process. I walked in, Matt, maybe like you asking the question, why should the county get into the electricity business? And I think I walked out really impressed by the opportunity here. And I think there's 3 key things. First and foremost, it's an opportunity to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, which is, in my estimation, a huge threat to our region, to our country, to our planet. And it's an opportunity for every citizen, regardless if you don't have enough money to buy a Tesla or put solar panels on your roof, to actively make a choice and get a greener electricity product. In the state of California, electricity, natural gas, utilities are a natural monopoly. It doesn't make sense for a company to retrench gas lines all the way to your house or string electrical wires as competition. And so this program creates an opportunity for people to choose a greener, more environmentally friendly choice. The second is that the technical study, which was remarkably well done and was open to a lot of public scrutiny, shows ratepayer savings. There's an option there, and these guys are being a little conservative in saying, well, it's going to be competitive, and we don't know ultimately what it's going to be, but at least the initial projection is you're going to have an opportunity to get greener electricity and pay less money for it, which is remarkable. And lastly, which we didn't touch on a lot of the excess proceeds in the JPA is going to be used for local generation and environmental projects in the county. So if you want greener electricity, if you want to pay less for that electricity and you care about investing in renewable energy generation in your town, in your county, this is the right program. And so I'm very excited about it. I think it's an awesome opportunity for our city, for the region. I'm happy that I live in a county that's being a leader on these kinds of things. There are a lot of counties in the state that are looking at it, but very few have done it. We would be the third if we have done it. And I'm looking forward to discussing it. I don't know, Tara, do you know, do we have a target date for bringing the resolution or ordinance to the agenda at this point, or do you know what the schedule is?
Well, I don't believe they will be ready on the 23rd, so I believe it'll be January, early January.
All right, excellent. So I just want to thank you guys for coming, commend you for your hard work, and I look forward to continued discussion. So thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you. Great presentation. Do we have anybody? I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead, Carol.
I just wanted to say thank you for your time. Thanks for letting us be here tonight, and remind you all that if you need any other technical questions answered, or if you need assistance from our county counsel's office on ordinances and resolutions, please call. They are available to help all the cities that want to finally join the JPA.
Great.
Thanks,
Carol. Okay. Is there anybody that would like to speak on this item? All right, I don't have any speaker cards, but wanted to give you the opportunity. Okay, next item is item 10A, consideration of adopting the 2016-2019 Economic Development Plan. Mr. Savay.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. San Carlos has taken a proactive stance toward economic development to guide investment in initiatives and to enhance our business climate. One of the key guiding principles in our general plan is to provide for a vibrant, diverse, sustainable economy that provides a range of employment and generates sufficient revenue to maintain high-quality services. With this value statement as a guidepost, the Economic Development Advisory Commission has prepared a new economic development plan for your consideration this evening. So tonight we have Josh Zarur, who is the chair of the Economic Development Advisory Commission, and he is going to walk you through the plan structure and ideas. Nell Sealander, our Economic Development Coordinator, Josh, and myself are available to answer any questions after the presentation. Josh?
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you for your time today. So in front of you, you should see 4 or 5 slides. We'll walk through this, and it's meant to be a synopsis of what's included in the Economic Development Plan, which I believe you have a draft of. So first off, I want to say that on behalf of the rest of the commissioners, it's a pleasure to be here to present this. We took the opportunity over the last 7 months to sort of field a number of different inputs into putting together a new plan. I think typically an economic development plan in San Carlos tries to lay out a strategy for a 3-year term, and that's what we've done here. So starting last March, we went through an exercise of looking at what was in our existing plan and began the process of engaging with City Council and internally on our own committee, brainstorming ideas. And so what you see in front of you is the result of that effort, and we're here to walk you through that. During the process, both engaging with the council and at our meetings, which are open to the public, a couple different variables sort of presented themselves for how we would organize an economic development plan. And I sort of classify those as there are things that we can do based on geography within San Carlos to make a difference when it comes to economic development. And there's the actual type of work. And I think it's important to remember that those 3 things really ladder up to, the reason why we have an economic development plan. And that's to ensure that we have a strong local economy, that we maintain and grow the tax base, and that we facilitate private investment. And so as the commissioner on the Economic Development Commission, we've tried to keep that at the forefront. So if you look at the third, fourth, and fifth slides, sorry, you've got this in front of me here. Several key themes emerged as we were considering all of the options. So first, marketing and promotion can be a lever for growth, and that's not something new. That's something that was in the previous plan. The second is that connecting the community is more important than ever, and that's meant to be both figuratively and literal. So literally connecting different parts of the community, thinking about transportation, and making sure that that this is something that the entire community benefits from. Third is, we need to make sure that we're motivated to retain and enhance our city's character, and that can come through beautification and retaining the businesses that San Carlins have come to love. And the fourth thing is really smart development. So that includes how do we develop, redevelop sites, and if there's opportunity for new development. Geographically speaking, you'll notice that there are 4 sections that the plan is divided into. There are initiatives that focus on citywide economic development and specific to downtown, to an area called South of Laurel, which is basically Arroyo South, and on the east side of San Carlos. And so really when you boil it down, there are 24 initiatives that our group has come up with, a number of which are carryovers, some of which are currently being worked on and staffed by the city. But they break down sort of equally across those geographies and across the sort of work type that we talked about. And out of this process, 6 clear initiatives sort of emerged as priorities. The first being identifying catalyst sites for new mixed-use development. The second being improvement in downtown parking and other mobility options. The third, pursuing workforce housing workforce housing opportunities, and that's really meant to be affordable housing. The fourth, continue to promote the city's brand. Fifth, establish and promote an industrial arts zone on the east side, recognizing the significance of revenue that comes from that part of our business community. And the sixth, encourage existing startups and attract new business to San Carlos. I think we probably don't want to walk through all 24 initiatives. So the 6, the way the document is organized is that on page 8, it's meant to be a tear-out sheet that identifies what those 24 initiatives are. And then page 22 is really the prioritized 6 that we just referred to. So at this point, our recommendation would be for the council to approve moving forward with this economic development plan. All right. What questions can I answer?
I don't see any lights on. Oh, Matt, thank you. Go ahead.
So the question I have, you had one rectangle up there that talked about the existing character and so forth of the city. And the concern I have, and I'd like to know how this plan or if the Economic Development Commission has taken up this issue at all, is an issue that I brought up at council a few meetings back. And that's this. If you look at our core downtown, already we've seen, and we're going to see more of this, quite a bit of change to San Carlos Avenue because Wheeler Plaza and a lot of businesses have been taken out of business by the forecast of that project. On Laurel Street, we've seen, the major change of one side of Laurel in the 600 block with the area where the antique store used to be. There's been quite a bit of change there. And then on the other side of the street, we're going to see some of the same thing where businesses are going to have to go, and the new owner of the property is going to remodel, and those businesses have, unrealistically, in my opinion, have been invited to come back in and release at twice the cost after waiting a year. So my concern is that we're losing. We talk about the character, and we've all talked about, I can't tell you how many times, having run for council, that you hear about, I'm going to work to maintain the downtown, and I'm going to work to maintain the small town character. But in my opinion, we're losing it. We're losing it fast. And existing businesses are being hurt. Small family-run businesses are being hurt. They're being, basically, in my opinion, being thrown out on their heads. And it's really, another part of that that's critical is the one place that I go to people know I go to the Plantation every morning for coffee. That is a sub-community of our community. When you go in there, I always joke with people, it's like Cheers. You walk in, everybody knows your name. People know who you are. You talk to people. There's a lot of discussion that goes on with folks, about family matters, business matters. I can't tell you all the things that happen out of that one little coffee shop. The place that I go to.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I want to get to this, Ron. Yeah, okay. I want to make sure I point this out, Ron, because it already went by this dais and it went so quick and it went over to the city manager and I haven't heard boo about it.
You had a question.
No, I do have a question. The place that I go to, the cleaners, it's the same thing. That I see customers in there that when I go in who know me and I know them and we talk and stuff while you're sitting there waiting to have your laundry taken care of. So we're losing that. How does this plan address any of that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So I would agree that maintaining the diversity in a downtown is really important for any downtown. And there's a number of tools that cities do have in order to kind of take care of and sustain what you want in a downtown, what the community wants in a downtown. So I think the city does have a number of tools, and the city has used those tools over the years in a lot of different ways. In terms of what's going to happen next, I think on that particular issue is later this week, city staff, the city attorney, city manager, and the economic development subcommittee of the council, the mayor and vice mayor, will sit down and start to talk about some of those tools that the city does have or does not have from a legal standpoint. So I guess to get to your point, we will be talking about it, and perhaps something will emerge from that. But there are lots of tools. I don't think the economic development plan actually is a tool to help maintain diversity and small business in a downtown. I think there's lots of ways that the economic development plan does that. And so I think it's one of the tools that the city has. As you know, there's zoning, general plan, design guidelines, and other things. So I think all those tools are at the city's disposal.
I'm sorry, no disrespect, but I didn't hear anything in that answer that addressed my question, that, we're losing these family-run businesses, and we're losing them fast. And actually what I see, to be frank, is our economic development that we're going for and more tax revenue is driving these businesses out. And yeah, we might have diversity, but it's not diversity with the same businesses that we're all familiar with and that we all trust, and so forth. And I think we've got a huge problem here. And I think we need to, if we're going to have to talk about it, let's talk fast and get something done, because this is now twice I've raised this issue, and all I'm getting back is a lot of nothing.
Okay. Cameron?
So I wanted to address Matt first and say we are planning to talk about it this week. I share the concern. I would state it that there has to be a balance because, you're talking about private property owners who own buildings and lease to businesses, and we can't legally dictate who people can and can't lease to. We can't rob people of their right to develop their property. But I do agree with you that one of the things that people love about our downtown is that it doesn't look like every other place in the world, that there is unique character, there are unique spots, and the type of things that you're talking about with Plantation, where you build community around a local small business, is a huge part of our community. It's something that I care about, And it's why I asked Jeff that we talk about it at this Economic Development Committee meeting. So I'm hoping that we can report out at the next council meeting what we talk about. Hopefully we'll get to some specific recommendations. I did want to ask Josh a couple questions. First, I wanted to say, before I joined the council, I had the opportunity to serve on the Economic Development Commission. I served with Ron. I was the chair for a couple of years. This is a far better economic development plan than we ever came up with. While I was there, I really appreciate the work that's gone into it. And I appreciate the succinctness. You know, we've spent a lot of time at our city council meetings and retreats kind of just coming up with just kind of a laundry list of things that, you know, was far more than we can accomplish in any one year. I just maybe wanted to hear you talk a little bit about, you know, what were some of the things that we decided that didn't make the cut, that we decided specifically, you know, these are our lower priorities so that we could focus on these sort of top tier?
Yeah, great question, Cameron. I think that, you know, at one point we had 70 or 80 different initiatives up for consideration, so winnowing it down to these 24 and these sort of top 6 was sort of the basis of the work that we did. I think included in that list were a number of things that we didn't think that as a city or as at least as the economic development plan had much of a say in. We tried to retain some stuff about workforce housing, but I think that there were a number of other initiatives originally thrown out there that we couldn't find a way for a specific plan to take specific action. So I think around workforce housing, I think around continuing education. So there is one initiative, we can look for the number of it, but there were a number of other initiatives around, you know, should we try to solicit technical college, that sort of thing to come in. I think outside of that, you know, the 70 or 80 that we started with, there was enough commonality that we were able to highlight what we thought was most useful or most impactful and include it in the plan. So I don't think there was a lot of, there weren't any major categories that were dismissed.
And then, you know, when you guys thought about this at sort of a high level, you know, what does EDAC, or how does EDAC, as is articulated in this plan, what would you define as the goals of economic development for the city of San Carlos?
You know, I don't think they're much different than probably what's been typed out in the economic development plans in the past. I think it really comes down to those 3 things. Can we put together a strategy that helps the city maintain and grow its tax base? Can we make San Carlos a place that is clearly open for business, and that means both, you know, retaining businesses that are here and showing that we're a place where private investment can make an impact. To me, those are the 2 things, and I think that's really what our committee used. I did bring up the fact that, you know, retaining the city's character, that's part of it, in our opinion, because that's what makes this place a desirable place to do business and to live.
Great. Thanks a lot.
All right. Any other questions for Josh? Okay. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Okay, this is a public hearing. We do have some speaker slips for this item. The first is Robert Lefebvre or Lefevre. Sorry, I've heard it pronounced more than one way.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, Robert Lefebvre, live at 1648 Walnut Street. I'd like to have you just go ahead and table this whole issue because you have parking problems already on the south of Laurel. And then you have the traffic study that's being done on St. Francis, which will impact all of this growth down on South Laurel. So I think you need to look at those 2 issues first. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next we have Brett Smith.
Mayor Collins, council members, hi. My name is Brett Smith. I live at 1600 Walnut Street. Here to just discuss the economic development plan and its impact on parking, and specifically in the South Laurel area. Thought I'd just paint like a quick picture of what it's like to live there on Walnut Street. It begins early in the morning, and this is, you've got to take into account our street on our block. There's approximately 13 kids. It starts out with a busy morning of cars racing up and down the street trying to find parking. So you have the mix of all these cars racing around the street, children on their bikes, going to Walnut, going to school. And on top of that, because there is limited parking, the people that are trying to park in the area are parking right up to the corners. So, because typically, I found in many neighborhoods, you'll find a red parking area around a corner, so it prevents cars from parking right up to the corner. That's not the case where we live. So it does make it more difficult for both the kids when they're on their bikes to see cars and cross traffic, and also for the driver to see the kid on the bike. So it's kind of a recipe for disaster. For myself, when I come home, often there is no parking in front of my own house. So I'm forced to park streets away. So now I'm having a further impact on my neighbors. Finally, this has, a lot of what I heard here tonight is we want to have, it sounds like a theme of, we want a community. We want a cohesiveness between the residents and the business owners. The residents are getting really upset with the business owners because of the parking issue. So with that being said, I really do, like Bob's saying, like to see the development plan put on hold until the parking issue is really solved. Because what I would like to see is San Carlos remain the city of good living, not the city of bad parking. Okay? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Would anyone else like to speak on this item? Yes, sir. You want to come on up?
Yes, I submitted a speaker card.
Oh, I'm sorry. You had listed 10B. Did you mean for it to be A? Well, come on up. I don't see it, but that doesn't make any difference.
I also live in the 1600 block of Walnut.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay, of Walnut Street. I was actually here 2.5 years ago and talked to the city council, and Bob did too, about the parking problems then south of Walnut Street. And this economic development plan seems to be just running across that and said, let's put more traffic in there where we already know there are parking problems. I recall, I think a couple of city council members recited 2.5 years ago how they tried to attend events at the office, had to park 2 blocks out of the neighborhood because the parking was so bad in the evening. The problems that was before Saltbox. The picture was up there of the Saltbox. The problems are 3, 4, 5 times worse. Brett talked about some of the problems. So now the city has heard the voice, and we've just got the very embryonic steps towards addressing something in south of Market. But that maybe come back in March. We were told at the community meeting that Mr. Savay held. Long way from solution, long way from getting new materials here. So the particular initiatives that I think really need to be set back and are frankly alarming from the perspective that the citizens have been coming forward in that area. Your number 1 priority initiative includes initiative number 23, which is to find more development in south of Laurel, 4 new sites where we already don't have parking and we already have the traffic problems. Number 2 is to improve parking opportunities in downtown. We need the parking improvements done in south of Laurel so that we can have more development, and we should not have more traffic being pushed into the neighborhoods that's already so severely confronting us. I know Mr. Savay got an earful from the several hundred people who attended the meeting. That part of this plan is really tone deaf to the people like us who've been coming forward for the last 2.5 years, and really needs to be rethought so that south of Laurel area the problems are addressed first, and then there's an opportunity for development when we have a real place for those customers to come to visit and for those employees to actually park their cars other than filling up the neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Would anyone else like to speak on this? Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Could I just ask Al to give us a brief response on the status of the residential parking permit program?
Certainly. A couple of things to add to that, too. Yes, as the speakers noted, I think it's clear that, the council has directed staff to look at a residential permit parking program in the south of Laurel area, and so we began that with a neighborhood meeting a week or so ago that was very well attended. I think there might have been 80 or more attendees. And really, it was an informational meeting. We were gathering information, and so we heard loud and clear that people were concerned about parking overflow from some of the businesses there. And there was a lot of business owners there, too. So there was good, balanced representation from the folks that are, creating some of the issues. And then everybody got to hear what everybody else was concerned about. So we got a lot of good information, very specific. It's a wide area that we've established for potential for this permit parking program. As you know, we just instituted one in the Greater East San Carlos neighborhood, and we explained how that works and that there was support for that in that neighborhood. So we are indeed at the beginning stages of doing this, and it's really up, once we get to a certain point, it'll be up to those neighborhoods to determine whether or not they would like to do this. So that being said, a lot of work is being done. We are working with the community down there, and we hear the frustration. So we think we have some ideas to help with that situation. So that being said, one last note on the economic development plan. However, the economic development plan is not a growth inducement plan. It doesn't induce growth. And in fact, there's one of the initiatives, initiative number 9 says to preserve and expand parking, transit, and mobility options as the south of Laurel area grows and attracts more businesses. And so actually on the, on sort of the flip side of it, the economic development plan in this initiative would actually help in terms of policy direction for future endeavors that we take to help the parking and the businesses down there. So that's just my 2 cents on how the economic development plan could actually help the situation.
And if I might follow up, I just want to say to the speakers, I appreciate you coming, and I definitely hear the feedback. I do agree with Al that this plan is more of an articulation of longer term priorities for staff, and it's really about saying, well, where do you want to focus and not focus? It doesn't create a specific action. It doesn't allow anything that's not currently allowed. But we've had a lot of conversations about parking, but I think I agree that we're not moving fast enough. I'm glad that there's a residential parking permit that's moving, but I think we all collectively agree that we need additional public parking in South Laurel and downtown. And so at least as one council member, I'd like to see us move faster with that. So
I agree. Matt.
We're under discussion now?
Unless we need a motion first, and then we can go back and check.
I'm happy to move acceptance of the economic development plan.
For sake of argument, second.
Okay. All right. Now we'll have a discussion. And
so
Matt?
The only way I'll vote for this is I'm looking at page 22. There are priority initiatives. There are 6 of them. And I don't know if you want to keep to 6 or you'd like to, bump some of these out to put others in. But the only way I would vote for this is if we had 2 other priority initiatives. One is to address the issue that I've already talked about maintaining the character of the core downtown and how to really help businesses that already exist still exist, how to keep them. I think the family-oriented, family-owned businesses that we have in town, we need to find a way to keep them. I, for one, do not want to look like Palo Alto or Burlingame. And number 2, I think one of the things we have to recognize that made San Carlos develop the way that it did, with the real core of the downtown being the 6, 7, and 800 blocks, is that our city fathers back in 1935, had the foresight to set aside Wheeler Plaza, South Plaza, and Williams Plaza. Those are all public parking plazas. And the provision of that to allow for free parking for the public is what allowed the downtown to grow the way that it did. And the reason you don't have the growth at the south end is because you don't have those public parking spaces. If we want to have the same kind of vitality in the downtown, at South Laurel that we have at the north end, the only way to get that is to put in some parking plazas so that these people don't have to worry about people parking in front of their house and zooming down the street trying to find a space. Even with what we have, I can tell you, I live at the north end. And when we have the farmers market those evenings, and you have all the vendors come in with their vans and whatnot, taking up spaces at Wheeler Plaza, you know, if I come home at 4 in the afternoon and try to find a parking space in front of my house, good luck. It's not there because they're all taken up by people going to the market, and that's great. I mean, I don't bemoan that. I don't feel like it's a negative necessarily, but it's a struggle, and so I can feel for what these people are talking about. So if we had a priority in here that talked about a public, you know, finding public parking at South Laurel as a priority, because that would, you know, what you said, Cameron, is this is giving high-level direction to staff that this is what we should be looking for. So let's put it in here.
Well, so I think that's a good idea. So maybe I'll suggest, yeah?
Wait a second. Okay. I'll get to you, Bob.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I'm just sort of watching the ball go back and forth.
Sorry, Bob.
That's all right.
Yeah, go for it.
Thank you. I actually have some comments, believe it or not. I have been awake. First of all, I want to thank Josh and EDAC and staff for doing this. I mean, I wasn't on EDAC as you were, Cameron, and this is an amazing document. I mean, and then to settle it down to 6 items, I think you guys did a terrific job. So I want to give kudos there. Just historical reference, as I remember, and I'm not sure if anybody's here, maybe Mr. Rubens can verify. At one time, this council had ordinances that there can only be so many banks. Is it correct? On Laurel Street, as well as hair salons, I believe.
Hail in there.
Right. So we do have the power to sort of decide what businesses, to some extent, are in or out. And I think it's great that you guys with the staff are going to discuss this, because these are the kind of items, how many of a certain kind of restaurant, or how many of a certain kind of this or that or the other. And there might be a situation that would come up again that we'd say, you know, we have enough of X or we have enough of Y. I don't know what those are, but there might be a situation. So we do have that power. Relative to the parking, I think personally, relative to the speakers the gentleman made, I think we have to get the parking done before we get, and again, as Mr. Gervais said, this is a plan. Tomorrow, nobody's knocking down buildings and building stuff down at South Laurel. I think we have to get the parking squared up. As the point the gentleman made on the corners, I don't know if that's part of it, but boy, it'd be great, because if we get Public Works or the police involved. I know even on some of the streets that I drive on up in the hills, it should be great to have red zones on the corners, because it's a little tough to see around them. But a comprehensive one that would work out for everybody, or hopefully work out sooner rather than later, and before we get too involved in implementing any of these 6 items, because I think that has to be, as Matt said, that has to be part of the situation, whether it's building parking lots or whether it's just coming up with the plan to do that. So I think there's ways that we can get through this. Again, there are going to be businesses in South Laurel that aren't going to be there in 10 years. There's going to be other businesses. Whether they're going to draw traffic or not, I don't know. Just like there are in the northern part, whether they're going to draw traffic or not. And to your point, there may be 6 businesses going out, or, you know, on Laurel Street. I don't know what's going in. You know, it could be similar businesses to what they are, or maybe not. That's the difficult part, but that's what I hope that the meeting that at least you'll get to speak to this week on that. So those are basically my comments, but I don't think I could say it enough that the work that went in on this, it was not done in 5 minutes, and I really appreciate the time that was put in.
Cameron.
So sorry to cut you off earlier, Bob.
No problem.
So I thought Matt made some good suggestions, and I was going to suggest an amendment that he might want to offer to my motion. Which, so you could add, we could change priority 2, which says improve downtown parking, to add the words improve downtown and South Laurel parking. And then you could add a 7th priority, which would say something like sustain the diverse local small business character of downtown, something like that. So I wanted to see if that might earn your support.
It would, if you wanted to. I guess you made the motion, so.
I made the motion. I'm happy to take it as a friendly amendment if you wanted to do that.
And the seconder would agree also.
Okay, well, let me see what the mayor has for comments first, and then take a look at it.
All right, and I agree with, well, first of all, thank you, Josh, Al, great presentation. EDEX continued to evolve since my days on it, and appreciate it. You got a lot of competent people on it. But I also want to speak to the speakers, Robert and Brett and Bill. I'm your neighbor. I live up on Chestnut Street, and when we decide to go to the office or Saltbox, we don't drive. We walk down because for all the reasons that you mentioned, and I think you have some good suggestions. Parking is a mess down there. It just, I come home from work, I see all the people at Saltbox, and I agree that we need to work in a comprehensive parking program, whether it's parking permits or building structures. The only problem with parking structures is that they are very expensive. And if we can work with developers when they come in to provide the public parking, I think we should do that. I'll support that. Definitely support that amendment. But just with respect to character, I just like to point out from a historical perspective, when my family moved here in 1955, we had toy stores, I wrote this down, record stores, five and dime, grocery and meat markets, theaters, a miniature golf course, a bowling alley, a cafeteria, candy stores, ice cream stores, drug stores, hardware stores, sports shops, bike shops, bookstores, shoe stores, and a photography store, plus a cleaner. None of those are left. Huh? Auto parts store. That's right. Towns evolve. Businesses don't stay. We had I forgot, we had a Palmas Delicatessen. We had a place for donuts. I mean, downtowns evolve. There's not a single business, maybe Wells Fargo. And the hobby shop. See, we can count them on one hand. And going from San Carlos Avenue to Eaton, where all those businesses have turned over the years. That's not to say that we shouldn't preserve the downtown character, but what people know as the downtown character today is not the character of the town in the 50s or even the 60s or even the 70s. I wouldn't want to go back to the 70s. It was really, things needed to change in the 70s, and that change began in the late 80s. A lot of people now come from other cities to come to our downtown because they love it. And I don't know how you write into an economic development plan how you preserve character. Character is what people experience when they come here, when they live here, when they work here. And I've always said the character is really the people who live here. We are the character of the city. So I think we just need to keep that in mind, that towns are always going to continue to evolve. I still miss that miniature golf course. So. All right, so having said that, Cameron, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, you have a much longer historical perspective, but I did want to just follow up and say I think part of the reason that people do come to San Carlos is because the businesses are unique and they offer things that you can't find in your town. It's not the same chain stores. And if we were to move to a place where Laurel Street was just all the same chain stores that you could find in any other town, there would be much less of a reason to come. And so I think that's why it is, why I do think it fits not only just in terms of creating, interesting places for residents to go, but why it rises to the level of an economic development issue, because it creates a brand and it creates a destination for our town. And so, so that's why I'd like to see it in there.
Okay. Matt, you want to add something?
Well, before I offer an amendment.
Okay.
Your comment that businesses change, and Mark, when I brought this issue up before, Mark Olbert made the same comment that businesses change, and I'm not denying that businesses change. What I'm saying is we're doing things with economic development, not because necessarily of the last economic development plan, but we're doing things as a city with zoning and other things that are causing businesses to change because buildings and real estate is being redeveloped, and that's different. That pushes a business out that doesn't necessarily want to go out. It's one thing when a business says, you know what, I'm tired. Like the sushi place on Cherry Street just closed because the owners were older and they decided, you know what, we've had enough of this. We want to retire. We're going to sell our business or whatever. We're going out of business, and they did. So someone else will move in there and take over that business. You know, Woolworths used to be downtown with a cafeteria and everything, and you know, for whatever reason, they decided to give up the ghost, and Didham's moved in. That's all different than saying, you know what, we've got a new owner, and the new owner wants a bigger building, and he's going to kick everybody out and build his new building and then invite in new tenants. That's a completely different ballgame, and that's what's going on with our downtown now. You know, I agree to you to some extent. Cameron said earlier, you know, it's private property. You can't stop people from developing and so forth. Try telling that to somebody who owns their house, and you tell them you have to have a 5-foot side yard setback on either side, and you have to 15-foot setback for front and rear. That's their property, but we're telling them what to do with it. So don't tell me that you can't make, you can't put conditions on property and property development. You can. One of the, I'm not saying I necessarily want to do this, but one of the things we could do with downtown is say it's historic. You can't touch these buildings. It's done. Communities do that. If you want to ultimately maintain the character of Laurel Street and its, you know, the height and everything, just call it historic and say you can't change these buildings. Now, I'm not saying that that's what we should do, but that's one of the things you could do, and nothing would change. I'm not saying that's necessarily what we should do. I think that would be a drastic measure, actually. But I think there are things that we can do, and after all, over the years, we've all run on the, you know, and when we go out and campaign and run for office, I'll keep the downtown character. Okay? Let's put our money where our mouth is.
Okay.
So having said that, I would make an amendment that we change item 2 on page 22 to read, improve parking opportunities and explore other mobility innovations to reduce congestion in and around the downtown and South Laurel.
I'd be happy to accept that as a friendly amendment.
Okay, and then to add item 7, this is, you know, kind of, I feel on the spot a little bit, how to actually word.
So I had a suggestion.
Okay.
You're welcome to edit it. So I wrote, sustain the diverse local small business character of downtown.
Okay, I guess that's good. I think there needs to be something in there about, you know, what makes a lot of the downtown businesses unique is they are not corporate owned. They're family owned. They're small business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why I said small business, and that's what I'm implying.
Yeah. All right. So I would take that language.
Okay,
that would
great.
be the amendment.
Okay.
So that's been seconded?
Seconded.
Okay.
And by the way, before
Yes.
we vote, and you know, I didn't say it because I was on my high horse. Thank you, Josh, and your group for all the hard work you did. I didn't want to leave that out.
All right. Any other discussion? Yvette?
Councilmember Grisilli?
Yes.
Councilmember Grocott?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Olbert, not present. Mayor Collins?
Yes. Okay, moving along, we're in the home stretch. Hopefully this is the final item of the night. Item 10B, consideration of adopting a resolution authorizing staff to issue a request for proposals to develop a field use and agronomic evaluation for the city and San Carlos School District Fields, Project C9836. Christine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the City Council, make it very brief in light of the hour. Sitting in for Jay Walter this evening, who was on vacation. This evening, we're requesting authorization to issue an RFP to essentially update our field use and agronomic report that was last completed in 2001 by Mark Mahady and Associates. You may recall We're always referring to the Mahady report as kind of our Bible of field use information. There's no cost associated with this action this evening, and we would return after the RFPs are received and evaluated. We have a quick 3-slide presentation, and Grace Lee, our city engineer, would like to present that to you this evening. Grace?
Excuse me, I apologize. Through the chair, I believe we should have moved to adopt a resolution with a number on the last item, and we did not do that, did we?
No, but I have the number, which
I
is
understand, but we
121.
didn't say it that way, so I apologize.
Well, just since this is being televised, what is that resolution number?
Yeah, we need to go back, I think, and make, don't we, Mr. Rubens, to go back and make a motion with that number on it?
I think you approved the resolution, and but the clerk, I think it would be a good idea for her to announce the number.
It's okay? Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, thank you.
Can she give the number, though, just for the record?
Resolution 121.
121.
That's what we did.
You know, I can't remember, though, if we took a roll call vote on that, and we did, I think.
Yes, we did.
We did.
Yes,
so that,
we did.
I didn't know we had to put the number. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, I just want to make sure we did it right.
Thank you, Bob.
Sorry,
Grace?
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. Grace Lee, City Engineer. The existing field use and agronomic report was done back in 2001. The report did review grass and field conditions for all the city fields, and it also determined level of use for each field. There was also a discussion of using synthetic turf to meet some of the high field demands, and made recommendations to schedule for closure and resting of fields. There are several reasons prompting the need for update, and one of them is the report is over a decade old, and throughout the decade there's been increase in field use demand. We are currently in a drought condition, which does affect the grass and field condition, and the drought will likely shape further discussion of synthetic field use for meeting the field use demand. And also, currently, we're working with the San Carlos School District for a maintenance agreement, and the city will take over maintenance of school district fields as well as scheduling for school district fields. So, in light of that, this update report will include the fields, the school district fields as well.
Through the chair, I don't think the city hasn't agreed to do that yet. The agreement's under consideration.
The maintenance agreement is still being reviewed by.
I mean,
yes.
the way you said it is we're going to do it, and so I don't think that's true.
Yeah, excuse me. Sorry, it's we're working with this.
Right, we're working with them. Okay, just make sure everybody understands that we have not, because I know there's a 2+2 and the whole.
Well, but through the chair, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that the study is to look at all the fields within the geographic boundaries of the city of San Carlos, including fields that reside on school property.
I agree with that. Okay. But she said the maintenance agreement is all set and ready to go.
It's not. That's correct.
I just want to make sure
this is a necessary step in trying to get there.
Exactly. I'm sorry, Grace, but I just want to make sure the record's straight.
Yeah, that's true. So we're in the process of creating this agreement. And so the next step is there is currently funding for the report. There's $150,000 appropriated for fiscal year 2015-16, and if with tonight's approval, if approved, staff will go out for a request for proposal to select consultants, and the consultant contract will be back to the City Council for approval. And with that, I can take questions or comments.
Okay, Matt.
So if I understand this RFP and what it's aiming towards, it ultimately could lead to some of the school fields becoming artificial turf. Is that correct, if this study makes those kinds of recommendations in order to...
The study will explore that question. In the 2001 study, it also looked into synthetic field use, so that'll be part of the scope as well to see what benefits synthetic fuel will have.
Including at school sites?
Yes, and
yes,
it's
okay.
a technical study on the usage.
All right, thank you.
Cameron.
And I can just share a little bit of background from the 2+2 discussions. The 2+2 committee, for those of you who don't know, is made up of 2 school board members and 2 city council members. It's long been a goal of the city council to increase the amount of athletic playing field space in the city. We hear from sports groups all the time that the fields are oversubscribed, that they have to go to other cities in order to practice and play games, et cetera. On the other side, the school district, their primary focus is on education, providing great quality education, and providing fields as a secondary priority, and the schools, are always struggling with budget challenges. And so this is a case where you have differing priorities, different people who own the land. So what we're trying to sort out, given that the school district is going through a bunch of reconfiguration of some of their property, they just built a school at Central, they're building another school at Tierra Linda. Are there opportunities to add additional fields? And I would say turf agnostic at this point. Turf can be a very controversial issue in San Carlos, as everyone is aware. The goal is, can we create more recreational field space in the city boundaries that's available during non-school hours for our recreational sports leagues to play lacrosse, to play baseball, to play softball, to play soccer. So this is a step we agreed, if we support it tonight, to conduct a study that will help serve as the basis for a discussion that will ultimately, hopefully, lead to an agreement with the school district whereby the city might provide for some of the maintenance in exchange for creating more field space so kids can play soccer longer. So I'm strongly in support of it.
Okay. Matt?
Well, we just had some discussion, kind of. In order to have further discussion, I would make the motion that we approve
Adopt resolution.
Adopt resolution number 2015
122.
A resolution of us, the City Council, authorizing staff to issue a request for proposal, RFP, to develop a field use and ergonomic, never heard of that, that's a new word for me, agronomic, okay, evaluation for city and San Carlos School District fields project. In fact, I should ask before, I made the motion, do I have a second someplace?
I'll second.
Okay, I'm surprised Bob didn't ask this question. What's agronomic mean?
It's like study of dirt.
Oh, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why you didn't ask the question. Okay.
I'm older than that. That's why I'm older than dirt.
Older than dirt, okay.
Right?
So discussion, right?
Not quite.
Oh.
So we have a speaker slip.
Oh, okay. Great. I always like to hear from the public.
Welcome back.
I was here, just comment, this is a big issue with PTA folks and such, as you can imagine. So I'm very much in favor of this because the city really needs some technical expertise on this. There's a lot of people that are out hitting the internet trying to find out what's a good idea, what's not. We really do need a careful, comprehensive thing, well disseminated. It needs to have a lot of public input, though, and I'm not sure that's really part of this. The technical people look at this. I'm not sure how well it's going to receive if there isn't going to be plenty of opportunity for a lot of folks in the city with opinions on this to at least feel they've had an opportunity to contribute. So that's really the comment I wanted to offer as someone who's already hearing the discussion about this report, and it's barely off the ground.
Maybe Ms. Boland could.
Well, I mean, let me assure you, having sat through my first year of council with 400 people in the youth center gym, this will have full public comment on all of these things, sir. Believe me. It took 10 years to just get one field. God willing, it'll take a lot less than that. But we will have the report will come out. It'll be vetted here, and it'll be vetted in many public forums. I'll assure you of that. It's not going to be something that's shot right through. Correct, Christine?
This is correct. What we're going to be getting back, though, just so you're clear, is a report on recommendations on resting of fields, closures, type of soil used, perhaps the use of synthetic turf on certain fields, age limits, hours of use per year. There's all kinds of different things that have went into this study which we need to have renewed. So it's not so much the turf war again from 2011. So thank you.
But that said, if I may, Ms. Boland, will this also include any recommendations about fields that need reconstruction?
Absolutely.
Okay,
that's
good.
what we're looking
That's
for.
what I was-
Yeah,
that's
we're
what I was
looking
hoping for.
for
Okay, good.
everything and more that we had before.
Yeah.
Okay. A comprehensive study, right?
And then especially with the drought, what we should be doing, what we could be doing.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion?
Just to throw in, almost as a follow-up to what Bob said, it's true in 2005, I know because I was the mayor that year and tried to corral people and run those meetings. And I don't know if Cameron, did you live in San Carlos in 2005? I don't know.
I did not.
But he was born, yeah. He's got a beard, look at him. But we did have extensive meetings.
I've heard tell.
And at one point, where we had arrived was to include the school district sites as part of the look for artificial turf fields. And one of the big ones that was being looked at that we had agreed to, that we had on the list when we passed it initially, was Tierra Linda, because it's in such bad shape down there. And they've actually got two fields that are in real bad shape. One's the upper field, and the other one's down by the whatever road that is, San Carlos Avenue or whatever. But neither one's in very great condition and difficult to use. So that was, at the time, we were looking at artificial turf for those fields. But I understand, the community, it's kind of a 50-50 thing on whether the community wants artificial turf or not. But because of the reason I bring that up is because I would be loath to have voted in favor of that plan in 2005 and not be in favor of this study now. So I'm going to support this.
All right. Well, before we vote, it just occurred to me that the two of you have been through, let's see, turfing in the fields before, outsourcing of police, changing the fire agreement, and now Measure V. If I were walking in off the street, I'd know why neither of you has any hair left.
I knew you'd say that. I knew you'd say that.
Quick shower, let me tell you.
Yvette?
Councilmember Grisilli?
Yes.
Councilmember Grocott?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Olbert, not present. Mayor Collins?
Yes, and I would like to adjourn this meeting tonight and say happy birthday to my wife, Gail, and to also wish all the veterans happy Veterans Day. I guess I've heard that you shouldn't say happy Veterans Day, but I do want to remember the veterans. Wednesday is Veterans Day, and we certainly honor all the veterans that have served our country since its inception. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.